and welcome to the Actual Tech Media MegaCast. My name is Jess, and I am excited to be here with you all today. But before we jump into our content, I have some basic information to cover with you. Let's kick off our day here today by taking a quick tour of your audience console. And we're going to start with the questions window. Now, if you haven't already said hi, there is a whole audience of cool humans out there, so reach out and give a wave to the other members of the Actual Tech Media community. Also, keep in mind that if you have any tech issues today, a browser refresh is going to fix just about anything. But if those tech gremlins are clinging on, no problem. Just throw a comment in the question section and our crew will be there to help. We also want this to be an informative webinar for you. So throughout today's MegaCast, we hope you'll get engaged and ask all of your burning questions. Not only will we have team members responding to you over live chat, we will also have a dedicated Q&A session at the end of our presentation. And if we do not get to your question during the webinar, don't worry, because the awesome experts that we have here with us today will be following up with you after we wrap. All right, next up on our tour, there are going to be lots of cool aha moments in the MegaCast today, and if you want to share those with your community, we've made it nice and easy for you. You can use the Twitter button right there in your audience console, and the hashtag for today's MegaCast will automatically get added to your post. And our last stop on this guided tour, be sure to check out the Handouts tab for some resources and takeaways from our speakers here today. We have an info pack collection of solution briefs, white papers, data sheets, free trials, ebooks, upcoming webinars, and more. So many great resources, so be sure to go explore. And if that wasn't enough fun, we also have some exciting prizes we will be giving away throughout the MegaCast today. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about those later on, but a few quick reminders for you all. You do need to be in attendance here live at the webinar in order to qualify to win a prize, and we will follow up with all winners after we wrap the MegaCast today. Now, all winners must submit an IRS Form W-9 to Actual Tech Media, and all winners must meet the Actual Tech Media prize terms and conditions. Now, hey, if you're not sure what those are, no problem. You can find the full T's and C's in that Handouts tab. Again, just click into the Handouts section, scroll down to the bottom, and you'll find the full T's and C's waiting for you there. Now, the absolute most important thing to remember here today is that we love getting all your insightful questions during these live webinars. In fact, we love it so much that we have a special additional prize for all you inquisitive folks out there. In today's MegaCast, we will be giving away a prize for the best question asked in each of our sessions. Now, the expert speakers and teams will review all the questions asked after the webinar, which means that even if your question does not get read out in a live session, there is still a chance to win. If you are a lucky winner here today and would like to donate the value of your prize, we have several wonderful organizations that we partner with. So let us know when we follow up about winning, and we will get that rolling for you. Again, we are so happy to have you all here with us live at the MegaCast today, and we want to keep that good feeling going. So let's connect on social. Reach out and connect with Actual Tech Media on Twitter and LinkedIn. We have lots of great content, and we always want to hear from you. Now, if you're looking for more awesome content right away after we wrap, you want to jump right in, make sure that you subscribe to the Actual Tech Media channel on YouTube. Another fun way to win a prize and to grow this awesome community is to refer an industry friend or coworker to the Actual Tech Media webinar series. Now, you're going to find a link to do that right there in that Handouts tab, and you will also be automatically redirected after we wrap today. Now, both you and your coworker, your friend, could win a prize, and we actually hold those drawings every month. So be sure you refer somebody awesome before you head out today. It could quite literally be a win-win situation. Next, we have a cool opportunity for the decision makers out there to get connected with new and emerging tech and innovative vendors. Here's how it works. All you need to do is click on the link in your Handouts tab and fill out the application. Then the Actual Tech crew will match you with some vendors that we think you should be chatting with based on your needs. There will also be fun opportunities that you can choose to join in, like surveys or test running new solutions, extended demos, and so on. You'll get some chances to win extra prizes, you'll chat with great people, and you will learn about the hottest new trends in tech. So be sure to apply, or hey, send that link to a decision maker in your team. Now, I want to take a quick minute here to remind you about one of my favorite resources, and that is ransomware.org. You can find everything you need to know about ransomware, how to prepare, how to prevent, and recover. The site is jam-packed with information, helpful tips, checklists, strategic approaches, case studies, everything you need in one place. So wherever you are in your ransomware preparedness journey, there is something for you at ransomware.org. So go check it out and start exploring. All right, I have one more exciting resource I have to tell you about today, and that is the Gorilla Guide Book Club. It's going to give you access to free enterprise IT books authored by top industry experts, so you can stay up to date on trending enterprise technology. And yes, these books are going to work on your Kindle, your mobile device, and they are completely free, super easy. You can download these awesome resources at gorilla.guide, and there's a link for you in the handouts tab as well. Okay, well, we've covered a lot of important things already, and I don't know about you all, but I am excited to dive in, so let's get rolling.
Yeah, let's get rolling. So today's topic is choosing a next generation data protection and disaster recovery solution. And I want to echo Jess by saying a big thank you for joining us. On the MegaCast today, we've got some of the most innovative leading companies in the industry. You'll be hearing from experts at Rubrik, Haiku, Vast, Commvault, Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, Kasten by Veeam, and Cohesity. So wow, that's a lot of different sessions full of innovative solutions, hot trends, and creative strategies all in one place. So this is going to be a long and awesome day, so let's get comfortable. So for those of you I haven't met yet, my name is Scott Becker. I'm with Actual Tech Media, and I'm excited to be one of your moderators for this incredible MegaCast today. Jess will be back later, and Keith Ward will be coming on a bit. And we'll also be joined by another of our regular moderators, David Davis, who will get us going with a keynote. So as Jess mentioned earlier, we have a fantastic lineup of prizes for you today. We'll be giving away 5 Surface Pro 9s. Again, that's 5 Surface Pro 9s. So these are great devices, and I don't know, is it too early to say this? If you've got kids in the house, we're starting to get into thinking about back to school. So perfect devices for students, great home devices, great work devices. We're really excited to be giving those away. And that's not even including the $300 Amazon gift certificates that we'll be giving away every 30 minutes. All right, so we've covered a lot of really important things already, and to kick us off, I am delighted to welcome fellow moderator David Davis for an Ask Me Anything keynote on choosing a next-generation data protection and disaster recovery solution. David, of course, is not only an Actual Tech Media moderator, he's also a prolific Pluralsight instructor, and he's an author, blogger, speaker, a veteran IT professional, a 14-time V-expert, VCP, a VCAP, and CCIE, and he's AWS certified. So we are in good hands for this AMA, and as he'll mention, I'm sure, send your questions in, and he'll be answering them in the chat even after the talk is over. So, well, Mr. David Davis, we are geared up and ready to get rolling on this MegaCast, so let's get moving. The mic is all yours.
Thanks so much for the introduction. It's great to be back on the MegaCast today. And this is a topic that's near and dear to my heart. So I thought we'd just have a little bit of fun with this. We're just going to have a very limited number of slides. Again, the topic here is Ask Me Anything, but about specifically choosing a next generation data protection and disaster recovery solution. You know, feel free to throw in some fun questions like we typically do on an Ask Me Anything. But again, we're focusing on next-gen data protection, the topic of today's MegaCast. And what I've done to kind of give us a jump start here on the Ask Me Anything is I've gone through I've found 12 of the most common questions that I've seen and the other moderators have seen in many of our recent data protection and disaster recovery MegaCast events. So I'm going to start off with these, and then I'll stick around to answer questions electronically after I cover these questions. So let's go ahead and start off with question number 1. And that is just a good basic high-level question. Why should I care? Why should I care? Why should I give a hoot about next-gen data protection and disaster recovery solutions? You know, maybe you already have a data protection solution. Maybe you've had it for a long time. It appears to work as far as you know. And you're wondering why you should care. So I'll give you quite a few reasons here. One of them is just, you know, the big R word, ransomware. Companies are getting hit left and right by ransomware. You need to make sure that you have a rock solid data protection solution ready to go that's tested, that can rapidly recover your data in the event that you are hit. And don't think that you won't be hit, because businesses are being hit I think the statistic is every 11 seconds by ransomware, and 37% of businesses were hit by ransomware in just 2021. So that statistic is a little out of date. I can only imagine that it's gotten worse since then. Another reason to care is you need to make sure that your data is secure. Whether or not you're hit with ransomware, most companies have regulations that they need to comply with, GDPR, CCPA. It is a legal requirement. And then, of course, ransomware aside, if you have a disaster, a fire, flood, hurricane, whatever it might be, you need to be able to rapidly recover your data, get your business back up and running. But you also need to be looking for more efficient solutions out there. Newer data protection solutions may provide much more efficiency, cloud integration. And we'll be talking more about why you should care about these solutions and what to look for in upcoming questions. So with that, let's move on to question number 2. And that is the common, it will never happen to us mindset here. We haven't had a disaster. We don't plan on having one. No one ever does, right? Why do I even need a data protection or DR solution? And of course, we know, or I hope you know, that disasters can happen anytime. This is insurance. This data is irreplaceable. This is your company's gold or oil, whatever comparison you want to make. This is your company's intellectual property, and it's your job to protect it. And the downtime can cost, more than your company can afford. I saw on average it costs businesses $1.85 million to recover from a ransomware attack. And the largest ransomware demand in history was $50 million. And most companies only recover 65% of their data in a ransomware attack. So you don't want to be one of those companies. You want to be prepared. And hopefully by the end of this MegaCast, it's a no-brainer as to why you need a next-gen data protection and DR solution. So moving on to number 3, why should I consider changing whatever I'm doing now for a new data protection and DR solution? Of course, change can be, uncomfortable. In some cases, change can be a little bit painful. We'll talk about that in the next question. But, there's a whole lot of benefits, and you'll learn about those on the MegaCast today. Enhanced security, automation, efficiency, reducing downtime, decreasing your recovery time objective or RTO, maybe give your company some scalability and flexibility, maybe cloud integration. Perhaps there is a cost decrease that might even be possible in some cases. And of course, you want to future-proof your data protection and DR systems to make sure that you stay ahead of potential risks. You don't want to be using some outdated legacy data protection solution. And then that brings up the follow-up question, how painful is it going to be to change? Will it be worth it? And I mean, that's always a good question. And this is a question I would ask the respective companies that you are considering moving your data protection over to, because they've done it thousands of times before. How complex is it going to be to migrate backup data? What about existing infrastructure integration, training, testing, validation, potential downtime, and additional costs? These are all great questions to ask any company that you're considering moving to. So I think that's a great question for a little bit down the line once you select a company that you want to move to. And then what kind of company should I buy a solution from? Look at their customer case studies, look at their track record, look at who else uses them. Talk to your peers in the industry. There's a lot of great industry groups and trade shows. You can meet up with peers and network. And I would make sure you spend some extra time learning about their customer support and their services, their future-proofing, their development, their cloud integration, their Kubernetes and container, data protection. What kind of RTO and RPO can the solution provide? What's their stability and what's their future support? And what kind of value are you really going to get, from your investment? Moving on to next question here, number 6. What are the features I should look for? Oh, I mean, this is a tough one because there are so many features. There's new features coming out every day from so many of these different companies that I even don't know about all the different features. But I mean, in general, look for automation, look for efficiency, look for fast recovery time objective, look for encryption and security, support for both on-premises and cloud environments, the ability to do automated testing, ransomware protection, scalability. But I would say get out your pen and paper, make some notes here on the MegaCast today, and write down some of the coolest features, some of the most helpful features that you see on the event. Then moving on to number 7 here, I found a solution that checks all the boxes. Should I get it? Keep in mind that one checkbox is not equal to another checkbox. One person's fast RTO might be much slower than some other solutions' fast RTO. So, make sure that you really compare all the solutions equally. And I think that's really the reason to do a proof of concept. Do a proof of concept, not just with one solution, but with multiple solutions, so you can see how they work differently. Because I assure you, they all do work very differently. So make sure you do a POC. Don't buy a solution without testing it. Moving on here, question number 8, how important is support when choosing a solution? I could give a one-word answer, very. It's very important. And if you are ever impacted with a large-scale disaster or a ransomware event, you're going to be using the support from your data protection vendor to help get you out of that very complex, very scary scenario. Make sure that they've done many ransomware recoveries before. Make sure they have a team to provide assistance. So make sure that you learn as much as you can about the support offerings from your data protection vendor. All right, moving on. Let's see. Next question. I'm not using cloud today. Why should I care about protecting it? Maybe you are using cloud and you didn't even think about it. Maybe you have data in partner applications or SaaS applications that you might not consider to be cloud applications, but they really are. I mean, everyone's using cloud in some way, shape, or form, and you need data protection for it. And if you're not using cloud today, I assure you, you will be using it soon in some way. So make sure that your data protection solution can protect applications in SaaS and applications in cloud services. Moving on, how important is restore? Well, restore, it's everything, right? Backup is nothing if you can't restore. And just because there's a checkbox that says, oh yeah, this application will restore your data. The question is, how fast can it restore? Not just one file or not just one database or one virtual machine, but how quickly can it restore all your data? That means every single bit and byte of your data that your company owns, that you protect. How quickly can you restore it all? You need to be able to answer that question with any solution, because those are the scenarios that a lot of companies end up with in a ransomware event. All right, so I think I've taken up a lot of your time here already on this keynote. I want to now hand it back over to our moderator so that we can kick off this MegaCast and start learning about some amazing next-gen data protection and disaster recovery solutions. But I'll stick around here. I'll be answering questions electronically, so keep those questions coming and make sure that you ask as many questions as possible to all of our expert presenters on the MegaCast today, because those are the true experts in data protection and DR, and that's the best way to learn about these solutions. So never stop learning, never stop asking questions, and have a great MegaCast. Thanks very much.
All right, thanks for that awesome AMA keynote, David. That's a lot of great advice already. And as David mentioned, the keynote is not over. Throw your questions into the questions area in your console, and David will answer as many of those as he can. You can track that ongoing conversation in your console and see more of David's insights on this topic as the day goes on. Now, as you can see here, before we get to our first session of the day, we have a quick poll question for you. And that is, what's your time frame for adding new or updating existing IT solutions at your company? You can see the options there of less than 6 months, 6 months to a year, 1 to 2 years, and then not sure. So we'll just leave that up there for just a few moments so everybody has an opportunity to answer that. We'd love to see where you are in your process. A lot of answers rolling in there, pretty even. I have to say, across those 4. So we've got a nice mix of you all out there, in terms of where you are. There's going to be a lot of great information for anybody sort of at any stage there. Okay. Well, thanks to everybody who's answered that poll. We are going to go ahead and close that down. And let's get rolling with our sessions. So now it's time for our first presentation in the Choosing a Next Generation Data Protection and Disaster Recovery Solution. And this session comes from Rubrik. Presenting for Rubrik is Brian Williams, who's a senior sales engineer. So I'm going to welcome Brian and turn things over to him.
Today, we're going to be focused on ransomware investigation. So this is data observability part 1, actually. And so these 3 pillars, why these 3 pillars? We focused on with security cloud, obviously resiliency side. Let's make sure we can cyberproof that backup data. And then the observability, we have to have visibility into what we're doing, or else we're kind of walking across the street blindfolded. I don't know anyone who does that. If anyone on the call does that, put it on TikTok and send it to me. I want to see it. And of course, data remediation. Why do we even protect data? Obviously, we got to restore it if we need it, right? So the observability is key here. There's a few different pieces that fit under observability. Obviously, understanding the scope of ransomware attacks, using high fidelity machine learning. And if there's a couple of takeaways from today, it's going to be like, wow, ransomware investigation, it's a really useful tool. The other thing is, Brian, I'm tired of hearing you say machine learning. So I guarantee you're going to get tired of me saying that today. But it's important that we go through it. Obviously, also underneath observability is understanding where that sensitive data lives. That will be a future coffee break. And then, of course, preventing malware reinfection by analyzing the IOCs and those malware artifacts. That's going to be in a future coffee break. So if you watch any amount of YouTube, you'll understand the reference when I say like and subscribe for those future ones. So just to kind of go through this briefly, why is this so important? Well, a lot of reasons, but we'll go into a couple here. Really, whenever there is a ransomware attack or a cyber event, you really only have like the first indicator that something's wrong is someone is on your team is like sending you a ticket, maybe a Teams message, Discord, Slack message, maybe an email or something like that to say, hey, I can't get to a thing. And that's really the tip of the iceberg. And then, we need to understand what is below the waters, below the surface here. Obviously, there's 2 options. You can pay the ransom, but we don't want you to do that. There's a couple of reasons why you wouldn't want to do that. One of which is they're criminals. Like, are they going to keep their word? Probably not. Other is, even if you do get the decryption tool, there's no guarantee that it works. And what we've observed is even using the decryption tool, it can actually corrupt your data. So now we're talking about data loss, even though you paid money. So obviously, we want to focus on recoverability. So you're going to try to recover, and you're going to engage 2 teams that typically don't work together that well. They're usually adversarial, I guess you could say. They have 2 different playbooks, 2 different goals. But ultimately, we have to ask ourselves some very important questions. Question 1, is my data recoverable? In the previous coffee break that Alex did, which someone's going to put a link to in the chat for you, he covered this. So what we are going to cover today is the scope of the attack and how we can determine that, because there's some very good reasons for that. The challenges of ransomware remediation, you're kind of forced to choose between a couple of different priorities. Obviously, quick recovery, determining that root cause analysis and blast radius, and of course, obviously minimizing data loss. The problem is when you prioritize one over another, things kind of fall through the cracks, right? So if we prioritize quick recovery to get the operation back up and running, well, there's some sacrifices that are going to have to be made along the way. Are we going to reinfect ourselves because we're not doing due diligence to look at the root cause, the blast radius? Obviously, if you prioritize the root cause analysis, we're spending a lot of time that the organization is down, right? And so we want to try to have the best of both worlds here. And so how do we do that? Well, as it so happens, the reason why we're all here today is the ransomware investigation can actually help with that, right? So our capabilities can help not only you don't have to choose between those sort of three priorities. We can actually allow you to perform that robust data analysis while also recovering as quick as possible. So first, obviously, the ransomware investigations can provide a really clean, simple, intuitive, easy to use interface that's going to allow you to quickly see any of the snapshots as far as the data has been changing. Rubrik utilizes machine learning models in order to establish a baseline for each object it analyzes. Right. So from there, it can actually proactively monitor and flag suspicious activity, including, but not limited to, abnormal change rates, system sizes, data entropy changes. That's a big one. We're going to come back to that one. And of course, once detected, the alerts can be pushed through the UI, email. Of course, you can send it to any kind of SIM SOAR tool you have. And then recently, we've added webhook connections, so you can actually get this inside of like Teams channels, Discord, or Slack. So the ransomware investigation not only flags the anomalies, but it's going to allow for you to quickly see the impact that the attack had. Right? This is really crucial to understanding what's happening. The affected applications and files can be easily spotted through the UI, browsing through not only multiple objects that have that anomalous behavior, but file systems too. Right? So be very granular, very surgical about how we're going about this to, really for the sake of minimizing time. Finally, the ransomware investigation is really tightly integrated with the zero trust data protection methodology that we use to allow you to leverage all the familiar and efficient Rubrik recovery methods directly within the ransomware investigation interface, which I'm going to get to in the demo a little bit later. So once that analysis is complete, we just have to select all the impacted applications or maybe impacted files or VMs, and then recover the most recent clean copy files or VMs, and then recover the most recent clean copy with just a few clicks, right? And of course, big thing here, all of the metadata analysis and automated blast radius determination is performed against the backup data, and we're leveraging Rubrik SAS resources, right, to ensure that the production resources are not impacted or constrained in any way, really minimizing that impact to your day-to-day operations. How does this work? This is my favorite slide. So there are two machine learning modes or two phases that are incorporated here, right? So the first is we actually have file system behavior analysis. So it's during this phase that data that's been changed since the last backup or previous backups, plural, is fed into that machine learning model. The model then utilizes characteristics like total number of files created, modified, deleted, things like user and system metrics, such as like files changed by users or maybe by the operating system, suspicious activity metrics like files with suspicious names, for instance. And after that analysis, the model can then detect with a pretty high level of accuracy a list of those anomalies or abnormal events within the snapshot. That's phase one. So out in the field, if other solutions, if they even get to this point, which they usually don't, they usually stop here. And there's a good reason why we go an extra step, because if I'm only receiving information and metrics about data change rates, ultimately, how much use that is it to me, really? Right? But Rubrik doesn't stop here. This is kind of what moves us into next level, right? So when the anomalies are detected, they're actually fed through a second phase. Right? So that file system content analysis phase, where other machine learning models are leveraged to detect the encryption within the files. So first phase is looking at the anomalous behavior. Now we're looking for encryptions, right? So this is important because, again, those suspicious naming patterns and number of files added, modified, deleted, and whatnot are utilized, but now we're coupled with data entropy stats, right? Because where there's a high level of entropy or a high level of randomization, that's going to be indicative of encryptions, right? So once completed, this secondary phase is now reporting on the likelihood of encryption within the anomalies themselves. So ultimately, the takeaway here is not only does Rubrik report on anomalous behavior, one on the encryption events as well. So let's dive a little bit deeper into the machine learning models themselves. Remember I told you you're gonna get tired of hearing me say machine learning? You're probably already there. So first, both models leverage machine learning in order to understand and determine the outputs, right? This is what allows Rubrik to extract meaningful insights from the raw metadata to quickly determine whether or not anomalies have occurred within the backups. The reason why, the flexible nature of machine learning is really what allows the models to run and extract a number of hidden insights maybe without the need to be explicitly programmed. This is really, really important. In the case of anomaly detection though, it actually takes a, set number of inputs, say like change files, number of encrypted files, and it sets like a use weight on each put to determine whether or not the model believes that an anomaly has occurred or whether encryption is present. And then from there, we can gauge with a very high degree of certainty and fidelity whether or not ransomware is present within the environment, right? It takes that two-phase approach. And so machine learning here is a really good choice for this because we can constantly iterate and change the inputs and the models allowed, which allows us, Rubrik, to kind of keep pace with the ever-changing ransomware landscape. So how do we train our machine learning models? Well, first, the training data comes into the model. This data comes from multiple sources, included both real-world ransomware attacks. We see a few of those. Our ransomware response team sees maybe 2 to 5 of these a week. And then these are processed through air-gapped environments, right? Just to gather data, gather intel on them, along with some simulations of various ransomware types in the wild. And all this data is fed into the model where it looks at many factors such as file deletion, in-place encryption, what have you. So then we actually output those predictions, which are verified, tested, labeled, and sent back to the model. This whole process utilizes supervised learning. And if you've done any research on like deep neural networks, like this is not going to be strange terminology to you. It's just, we use that supervised learning which is designed to utilize these labeled data sets to train or supervise the algorithm into classifying and predicting data outcomes with accuracy, allowing for the model to learn over time. It's pretty cool. So the implementation of this phased approach allows models to run in the most efficient manner. So only the change detected from, the previous phase are sent to the next phase, right? And then subsequently, only phase 2 is processing what it learned from phase 1 because phase 2 is looking for encryptions. So this allows for not only like really highly accurate results, which we're looking for, we don't want false positives, right? But ensures the model is running in a timely manner, right? It doesn't do any good if it's running and it takes forever and we are missing the window of the encryption attack, right? So not only is it very highly accurate, but ensures it runs in a timely manner and also requires the least amount of compute to ultimately execute. So this provides scale because not only can we scale up each phase, but each phase can be modified and tuned independently from each other. And of course, finally, the ransomware investigation, everything's stored locally. Like it poses no threat to your data locality for any regulations you might have in place because the actual data never leaves the confines of your data center, right? It's actually only the metadata about that data that's actually sent to the machine learning models within the Rubrik SAS platform. So for the processes that actually require actual data, like phase 2, Rubrik will actually send instructions back down to the local cluster, and we'll do all those scans and compute using your compute on the cluster itself, returning the results back to the control plane. So how does it work exactly? So this is pretty in-depth, but we're going to make it through it, I promise. And after the fact, if you're not already tired of machine learning, that phrase, you will be after here, right? So how does this begin? Well, everything starts after the backup's completed. About 10 or 15 minutes after the backup's finished, Rubrik's going to do its thing. Once it completes, Rubrik's going to mount that snapshot and generate what we call internally a file system metadata file, FMD. These contain tremendous amounts of metadata generated around the actual data of the backup. Things such as like path to files, file sizes, ACLs, and what have you, right? This newly created FMD, that's what I'm gonna call it from here out, FMD, is then compared with the previous snapshot's FMD. And so from there, we generate a diff file, and which is gonna be like a list of things that have been created, modified, deleted since the last backup. The diff file is then uploaded to Ransomware Investigation. Keep in mind here, it's only the metadata that's being sent to that service for processing. Your data obviously remains within the confines of your data center. And this allows for Rubrik to leverage cloud for scale up. Obviously, everything we do is based on that scale up nature that obviously machine learning needs, while keeping all of your crown jewels back behind your firewalls. The diff file is then kind of fed into that machine learning model. Here are a number of things are looked at. Things like number of changes, additions, deletions, how the files are modified, right? For example, were they modified by user count? Were they modified by the system itself? And of course, how these files themselves have been named. Are they suspicious in nature? Right? Because we can actually key on that. I actually show you in the demo later how we actually see the ransom notes, which is pretty cool. And so the machine learning model actually uses labeled data sets to classify these things and then outputs a list of anomalies. Now, those anomalies are then immediately reported to the Ransomware Investigation UI, and alerts are sent out if those are configured. The anomaly itself is not critical. It's not a critical alert. And there's no thresholds you need to set. You can get reported on if you want to, because you can configure different levels of reporting. But ultimately, if we detect just an anomaly, it's not a critical alert. We save that for if it matches both phase 1 and phase 2, which I'll get to in a second here. So the anomalous files within the backup are then queued for an entropy scan. Right, this is the sweet sauce, the secret stuff here. Scanning for the entropy. Again, we're looking for high levels of entropy or that randomization, because that is going to be an indicator of encryption. And so scanning for entropy, though, can be pretty compute intensive, which is why this step is only performed if it matches the anomaly stage first. Right, remember, it's got to feed into phase 1. If phase 1 detects anomalies, then it's only then is it fed into phase 2. Right, and so obviously, this is why it's performed locally too, because it's compute intensive. And of course, during this task, the entropy values are computed and compared against those in the last backups. These values are then stored in a special table called a ransomware SS table, RST file. And in the end, we have a list of anomalous files, along with their corresponding change of entropy since the last backup. Again, to save on resources and leverage cloud scale, the RST files are then sent up to Ransomware Investigation and then fed into another machine learning model. It's in this stage that the entropy values are used to determine a level of encryption for the backup itself. This stage also implements checks around suspicious naming patterns, file operation statistics. So when we use these together, everything kind of working together, it can be a reliable indicator of whether malicious encryption event has occurred. When finished, the model outputs a very highly accurate prediction around whether or not encryption has occurred with the anomalies, pointing to whether or not ransomware event is taking place. And so all of this is then fed back into the Ransomware Investigation UI. Why is this important? Well, we have to understand the blast radius. Like when you get these alerts or you're under some type of cyber incident, right? Again, we have to ask ourselves some very important questions. One of those is, where do I start? Where do I even begin to do this, to recover, right? So 2 big questions here. Do I have to recover my entire data estate? Or the other question, also very important, feeds into the first one, which files are encrypted, right? So previous to Ransomware Investigation, this was a very manual process, right? Crawling through the file tree manually. That takes a lot of time, right? Obviously, so with Ransomware Investigation, we're going to identify, those suspicious activities And then we're going to let you know, and as you as an administrator can decide whether you need to recover everything or maybe just a few things. You be very surgical here, because that's the idea. You don't have to throw a baby out with the bathwater, right? If you understand that analogy. You can be very detailed, because speed is important. If I don't have to recover everything, if I only have to recover only what's affected, obviously I can get back up and running much, much faster. And of course, which files are encrypted? You have to know this. This is absolutely crucial. And through our UI, we can be able to tell you those things. So again, you're able to gather this information and make informed decisions on those critical recovery actions. All right. So now that I've thoroughly bored everyone with a in-depth discussion, let's jump into the demo here. Naturally, now that I'm recording, it's got me signed out. So everything we do, obviously, we're enforcing MFA here. No escaping it, even for those of us who work here at Rubrik, probably especially for those who work here at Rubrik here. So just give me one moment here. No escaping it. So this entire coffee break is really about the data observability, specifically ransomware investigation. But within the UI, your Rubrik Security Cloud is providing you that single pane of glass, all of the observability you could want. So people say, well, yeah, Brian, ransomware investigation is pretty great. How do I enable it? Give me the instruction book. Well, here's the cool thing. There's no instruction book needed. So we go into my settings and I turn it on for all the clusters that I have access to. That's it. That's what it takes to enable ransomware investigation. There's a couple of different ways I can access ransomware investigation. One of is, what if I'm using my global search here and I'm looking for a specific workload that I want to recover. Again, bringing in the observation here because I can see everything. It's a file server. I'm just going to do recovery really quickly here. But what I can do is when I go to recover, I can actually take a look at this snapshot inside a ransomware investigation just to make sure that when I recover, I'm not recovering anything bad. And obviously, I see some things here. So now I know that this is not a good, clean snapshot, right? The other way is, of course, I could jump into ransomware monitoring, and now I can investigate these anomalies as they're presented. And what do you know? It's listed here as well. So the surgical nature, the reason why this is so important is, as you can see, well, the entire server is not affected. It seems to be just one particular drive. This is good. As you notice here, though, as I hover, I could view this in data discovery. I'm not, though, because that's in a next coffee break for you. But to continue to dive in here, again, I can be very surgical about what I'm recovering, very purposeful. I can just keep digging until I find bedrock here and say, oh, obviously, here are the things I need to recover, right? Typically with these cyber events, what you're going to see is suspicious file. This file is encrypted with lockbit. In this case, could be Ryuk, could be just .encrypted. So typically these cyber events are going to include a deleted file and an added file. The added file is the encrypted one. Your file is what they deleted. We can get these back individually. Just highlight what you want to recover, go into recover, and we have a few different options for file recovery. If you'd like to know more about this particular recovery style, that is covered in Alex's video and will be covered in more detail in a future video. But I have a few options here for file recovery, but let's just say I don't trust recovering just the files. I can very easily recover the entire snapshot itself. And I have a couple of options. So Rubrik takes the guesswork out of it for you, right? Answering one of those questions, hey, when's the last good backup? Where do I even recover from? I can tell you from personal experience, I spent, hours at a whiteboard trying to figure this out. And of course, the ransomware investigation figures it out for me. If I don't want to use that one, I can actually select a different snapshot, right? And Rubrik's going to say, hey, here's the bad one. Here's some clean ones. Which one do you want to use, right? Rubrik's going to default to the one that's closest to the event to minimize any kind of data loss potentially. But if I'm good here, if I know which one I want to use, I go to next. and I have my options here for recovery of the entire VM, VMware VM in this case. So I'm probably going to use in-place recovery because that's going to be my best option here. And that's it. That's how easy it is to use what ultimately sounds like a very complicated and robust solution.
All right, thanks, Brian. And we do have a poll question for you. We appreciate your feedback on additional resources that you'd like to see from Rubrik. Looks like we had a lot of questions here that we can't get to right now, but Brian Williams and the Rubrik team will do their best to respond to all of your questions. And I'd also like to remind all of you about the handouts. We've got a great PDF for you from Rubrik. It's a database protection for dummies book, 36 pages long, sort of sweet spot there, long enough to get into some real nuts and bolts without being too long. So be sure to check that one out. And while I leave this poll question up for you, it's time for our first prize drawing of the day. And so the winner of one of our $300 Amazon gift cards is Alfonso Nien from California. So congratulations to Alfonso Nien. We'll be in touch about claiming your prize. And of course, everybody stay tuned. We're going to be giving away those $300 Amazon gift cards every 30 minutes throughout the event. And of course, we do also have those 5 Surface Pro 9s to come. All right. Well, thanks to everybody who responded to the poll. We do appreciate your feedback, and I'll just leave it up here for another moment, and then we're going to move on to our next presentation. Okay. Well, again, Brian Williams, great presentation. Thanks so much for educating us on Rubrik. And now it's time for our next session in the Data Protection and DR MegaCast. And this session comes from Haiku. And presenting for Haiku is Tish Beghaus. Tish, welcome. Thanks for being on the event today.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, well, take it away.
Perfect. Thank you. Yes, like I said, I'm Tish Beghaus, SE Northern Europe within Haiku. And for the coming 20 to 30 minutes, I would like to take you through how to best select a multi-cloud data protection as a service solution and what to look out for in the next gen data protection that is out there. Before I do that, I want to have a look at today's reality. If you look in the meantime already quite some years back, for most customers with our on-premises infrastructure, it was like their castle, some call it also the data center. All your infrastructure within boundaries, including your different platforms, application, databases, all not always that easy controllable, but at least at one place, and you had one single view on where it was. Over the years, of course, that developed also into cloud infrastructure, cloud services. The first software as a service came in. And it already started to complicate things a bit more from where pieces of your business critical data were and how to protect those as well. Looking at today, we see really an explosion specifically also of the SaaS services out there. Every department has their own needs for their business applications, and also startup, sometimes without even knowing of central IT, their own SaaS applications for specific functionality. And this leads that data is everywhere, not only in that good old on-prem data center, but also in the different public clouds, infrastructure services, database services, platform services, and all the other SaaS services out there. How do you keep control and how do you protect this? In the past, it was quite easy with your on-premises infrastructure. Like I said, it was all quite controllable. Not always the easiest to protect, but at least you had the visibility on it. A lot of customers still believe that that same protection like end users expected from your on-premises infrastructure is also provided by cloud service providers and software as a service providers. A lot of customers still believe that it's a service, so they protect it, they take care of it. But for every cloud service provider, for every software as a service provider, they have one commonality, and that is that they all operate by the shared responsibility model. Meaning they provide a service. They have an uptime, an SLA, etc. around the service, but always you are responsible for your own data. You have to make sure it's protected. You have to make sure it can be restored. That's not the responsibility of the SaaS providers. Looking at that big gap that we see in cloud and SaaS for data protection, also one of the interesting facts is perhaps that SaaS is currently the #1 target for ransomware attacks. And over half of those attacks are successful. So looking at how to choose a next-gen data protection and DR solution, there are a couple of things to keep in mind when looking also to protect not only your on-premises infrastructure, but also those cloud and SaaS applications. And it all starts with visibility. Know what applications are out there. What we see, of course, with a lot of organizations that some say, no, we don't use cloud, but in the meantime, they have an Azure AD or Microsoft 365 or departments that use different SaaS applications. So it all starts with knowing what you have within your organization and where your business critical data is. Then second, of course, how do you protect all? Not only the most common ones, but any SaaS application out there. Currently, we are around 17,000 SaaS applications available worldwide. Average mid-sized organization in the US easily uses 50 to 100 SaaS applications, if not more. So how do you make sure you can protect that? And like I said in the beginning with the keynote, not only protection, a backup is nothing if you cannot recover it. So specifically recovery, and not only can it recover, yeah, of course, every backup solution can do a recovery, but how do you do it? What is your granularity? How fast do you do it? How intuitive is it? Can an application owner do it by themselves? That are really things you also have to look into recovery. So not only for the cyber events, the ransomware attacks, but also from the operational point of view. And with that all your business critical data all over the place, how do you keep compliant? Compliancy starts with having control, having that visibility, making sure you have your data locality in place to comply with any rules or regulations out there. So data protection is needed for applications, not only for on-premises infrastructure, but also when running in cloud or SaaS applications. Not only for those ransomware attacks that we heard a lot of, but also still for the more common data loss, the accidental deletions. Human error is still a huge factor in data loss, also in cloud infrastructure and SaaS applications. Logical failures and corruption still happen, and also the rogue admins is something we still see on a weekly basis. Not only have that data protection to be able to recover, but also to be compliant with be it GDPR, HIPAA, SOC, ISO, or whatever. So really make sure you have that data governance for the short, but also for the longer term retention, and have the ability for offsite copies as well to comply for ransomware protection in there as well. That's why we deliver data protection as a service for modern applications. And not just take our word for it, but also look, for instance, at the companies behind Haiku, our venture capitalists and really leading SaaS vendors out there are among our investors like Atlassian, Okta, Bain, Acre, and Cisco. And I think specifically in Okta and Atlassian, why they became an investor in Haiku is also that they saw that big gap in data protection and protecting modern applications going forward. Because a lot of customers have the ability to create their own integration for each specific SaaS application they have next to their physical backup, next to their virtual backup, their Kubernetes platform, and all kinds of different point solutions. And this is a situation that was basically reality before we launched our solution, because most SaaS vendors don't provide customer-friendly APIs to integrate with for data protection. It's not their primary focus. The primary focus is the specific business application they provide, not the data protection side. And this, of course, becomes really unmanageable for customers. This is where you really lose visibility and lose control over your data estate and how to protect that complete end-to-end environment. This is why we provide our solution with rGraph. rGraph is really focused on that first step, what you need for next-gen data protection to really visualize your complete estate. Not only your on-premises infrastructure, but also all your cloud services, be it AWS, Google, or Azure, including SaaS, for any SaaS application out there. This can be easily integrated with identity providers like Okta and Azure AD to discover really all those services that are out there. And from a single point of view, really see what kind of applications or what kind of infrastructure or platforms are used by the different departments, and of course, if they're protected or not. It's quite easy, basically one click, a policy attached to a specific application, which also can be done automatically to have the right RPO and RTO also on your business applications in any of the platforms out there. How we do this is a bit different than what you see most in the market. Like I said, there are 17,000 SaaS applications out there, and we have a great engineering team, but I don't think they're that great that they're going to develop an integration with 17,000 different applications out there. So what we did is really turning around the chicken and egg story of how do you integrate with a SaaS application if they don't provide you the APIs for data protection. That's why we launched rCloud. It's the world's first development platform, a low-code development platform for data protection. Here, any SaaS vendor or ISV can integrate their SaaS application with our SaaS backup and recovery. It's really based on native data protection, so native integration through the APIs, but they can utilize the granular restore, the offsite and immutable backups we already provide, and it's easy to subscribe and really provide protection in minutes. So with rCloud, we provide really the development platform for SaaS and ISVs to integrate their platform with our data protection, all based on native APIs from our side and the SaaS vendor, of course, managed, secured, but also published by Haiku through the Haiku marketplace. And this goes for any application out there. Of course, the first ones already did it, and a lot are on the way, but it's quite easy to pick any of the SaaS applications out there, go through the rCloud process, develop the integration, and from there publish the specific modules for those SaaS applications in the Haiku marketplace, where it's available for any customer out there. What we do is really provide coverage for everything, not only for SaaS PaaS database services in the enterprise, but really provide automated backups, easy one-click restores, and offsite ransomware-proof copies for any platform you use, be it virtual or physical platforms on-prem, container-based platforms, cloud infrastructure platforms for the most familiar ones I also mentioned, or any of the thousands SaaS applications out there with support for already Jira Service Management, Confluence, Okta, Salesforce, and others that are familiar for most of you. So, what Haiku really provides for our customers is a platform-independent data protection solution, not only for today, but also for tomorrow, for any modern SaaS application out there, where we provide that visibility through our graph, so knowing what you have within your organization and if it's protected or not. Integrate that quite easily with our core capabilities for backup and DR, and also with that, because we support all the different platforms, provide cross-platform mobility and disaster recovery between on-premises, public cloud, or vice versa. For those that are not sure how ready they are for ransomware preparedness, we also have our R-score, where we provide the insights into how prepared you are, where the gaps are, and where to strengthen. And of course, everything available from one single pane of glass within one data protection as a service solution that covers it all. Before I will have a look at the questions, this slide is clickable. It will guide you through our website. Please have a look. From here, you can get a free trial, but also, for instance, get a demo. Or if you're more interested in also on the development side and the low-code development platform, rCloud, that is where you also can get started. Good. I'll have a quick look at questions if there is still time to answer some, and otherwise I'll do it later on.
Yeah, Tish, we've got plenty of time for questions cool. Here. And let me just put up the poll question so people can click on there what information they'd like about Haiku. But Tish, we do have a few questions coming in here, and if you want to keep an eye on the console too, that'd be great. But one of the first ones here, they're asking, with all the different on-premises cloud and SaaS sources that you support, how do you integrate any agents that are needed, or how do you integrate it, and what agents are needed?
Yeah, it's a question we get quite regular, and this is where we are fundamentally different from any other data protection solution out there. We started with the idea that we would live in a multi-cloud hybrid world, and that there will be many platforms out there. Customers start on one, move on to the other, and probably the ones that will be the biggest are the ones we don't even know or exist today yet. Because of that, what we always do is for every single platform that we support, we do it based on native integration. We always use the core capabilities of each platform itself, and in that way, we never use agents. There is no dependency in Haiku for integration into a specific platform. And that way we can support new platforms that easy. And now specifically also with rCloud, we even have a development platform available for external parties to do their own integration onto the platform.
Okay. All right, great. Hey, there was another question here, probably prompted by that slide that you had with all the different types of backups, and then you had the meme about the fire, everything's okay. But the question here is, we have a lot of sources and jobs to schedule. How does Haiku make that manageable?
Yeah, of course, when you support on-premises, cloud, SaaS, and everything, like I said, it all starts with visibility. So the automation in that's a big part in it. But also specifically on the protection side, we don't use backup jobs or those kind of things. Everything again is based on simplicity and automation. So the way we protect sources is based on policies. And policies are basically service level descriptions of how you want your data to be protected or how you want your departments to be protected. And in there are things like RPO, RTO, where does data need to be? Does it need to be immutable for ransomware protection? On what locations does it need to be? That's all included into the policy, and that policy is connected to workloads, and Haiku takes care of backing up and protecting your workload according to the policy. So really making it easy and taking out all the planning and job schedules and those kind of things.
Okay. All right, great. Another question here from Nicholas, who's asking, we have other ransomware products installed. Would we need to get rid of all of them, or does Haiku play nice with other products?
Yeah, a good one to understand when we talk in general cybersecurity and more specifically ransomware protection. There are always three main areas. One, the visibility again, knowing what's happening. Two, the protection done by your cybersecurity solutions. And three, the recoverability. If still something happens, if they still break through, how can you recover? And we as Haiku, we really focus on the recoverability. And for recoverability, we really also rely on the cybersecurity solutions out there. To give you an example, of course, we write to immutable targets, and we can do that to any target out there. It can be on-premises, that can be cloud-based or whatever service is out there. But also, for instance, a really important one is that we have automated validation of our backups, where we do physical restores in a sandbox environment where you can do any check on your restore. But one of the checks that most customers, of course, do is also do a scan with the latest updates and the latest information in your cybersecurity solution if those backups are clean. And that way we can easily validate also the longer term copies that are immutable, and still, if that copy is a year old, know that it's clean with the information we have today. So that way we really integrate and leverage also existing cybersecurity solutions out there.
Okay. All right. Super.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Cool.
and Tish, looks like we're running out of time, but I did want to ask you if somebody wants to get started with Haiku or find out more, what do you recommend?
Yeah, like I just said, go to our website. From there, we basically have any information, but I think the three main ones is from there you can get started with a demo. You can get a free trial, so try it out yourself. Like Dave Davis said in the beginning, always try to see how it works. Or if you're more on the development side and integration of SaaS into data protection, that's also the starting point for our cloud and to get the access to the low-code development platform as well.
Okay, fantastic. And I put back that slide up, that clickable slide, which goes to the website.
Thank you.
Yep, and also there's a handout in the handout section, which is a great PDF on multi-cloud data protection as a service by Haiku. And Tish, thanks so much. If you can hang around at all and answer any of the questions in the chat, there were a bunch of questions that unfortunately we didn't have time for, but thank you so much for being here and bringing us up to speed on Haiku. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for your time. Thanks.
All right, and now it is time for our next prize drawing. And so the winner of our next $300 Amazon gift card is Marco Mambelli from Illinois. And the winner of our grand prize, the first of the Surface Pro 9s that we're giving away today, is Brian Faudry from Pennsylvania. So congratulations to Marco Mambelli on the gift card and Brian Faudry on the Surface Pro 9. We will be in touch about claiming your prizes. Okay, now it's time for our next presentation in the Data Protection and DR MegaCast. And this session comes from VAST and Commvault. So presenting for Commvault is Chad Blackwell, who's Vice President for the Americas Partner Ecosystem. And presenting for VAST is George Axberg, who's Vice President of the Data Protection Division. So Chad, I'll turn things over to you to get us started.
Thank you, Scott. Welcome, everyone. I'm Chad Blackwell, Area Vice President of Commvault's America Partner Organization. George, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you so much, Chad. George Axberg. I'm the Global Vice President of the Data Protection Division here at VAST Data.
All right, so George, let's kind of get into this. I mean, I think this is well known, but data's everywhere, right? It's past the edge, it's in the data center, it's in the cloud, it's inside the firewall, outside the firewall. It's just growing like crazy, and it's becoming more complex to protect enterprise customers' data. And it's really becoming extremely more difficult for organizations to really, keep pace at the rate the data is changing. And, ransomware is nothing new, George. We talk about it all the time. But what's changing with ransomware is it's becoming more sophisticated. So it's very important for data protection companies to be able to keep up with how ransomware is evolving. So you got to have the most secure and most secure data platform to protect customers' data on the planet.
Exactly right, Chad. And what's interesting, I've been doing this as you for about 20 plus years now in the data protection world, and recovering quickly is more important than ever. I could just remember, maybe 6 years ago, 8 years ago, always in the past, recovery was all about restoring an error. Someone lost something got corrupted, something was misplaced, fat-fingered thumb, something was deleted. It was always about something. Something needed to be recovered. And then over time, in today's world, and it could be something simply around a weather event, it could be a power event, or let's be honest, if it's really going to be about cyber events and the need for cyber resiliency, you may need to recover everything, not just something. And in that world, we're talking about also just the organic growth of data over the last half a dozen years or so. 500 gig databases are now 50 terabytes on their own. So that ability to have that instant recovery and that instant access is paramount today, more so than ever before. And you see this note here from Forrester. A harsh reality is that the majority of organizations are not even testing their ability to recover from a single system, let alone recovering from the entire environment. And I think that's what brings both Commvault and VAST here today.
Great points.
So just as kind of like an introduction for those that maybe are not that familiar with the companies of VAST Data and Commvault, just to give you a little idea, I'm going to start on the second row on the right here. Gartner is considered number one for analytics. First year in the Gartner Magic Quadrant, we're already a challenger, one of the highest levels of any newcomer to the Magic Quadrant has ever been. Out of all technology companies, right, we're 16 out of 500 as per Forbes. One of the number 3 fastest growing companies, 10 most innovative. By the way, that's just not in the IT industry. That's all industries around the globe, and really an emerging vendor. But I think what really we're proud of the most, and something that I think all of our viewers would be interested in, if you go to the top level there, for the first time ever in a Gartner Peer Insights review, for the first time ever, 100% of respondents, VAST customers that responded to that review, said that they would recommend VAST, they'd buy VAST again, and they'd also, again, recommend it also to a peer. That's the first time that's ever happened. We're very proud of that here at VAST Data.
Yeah, that's great, George. And it's no reason that we're partnered with VAST Data here at Commvault. And, one of the strengths here at Commvault, George, and I don't want to speak on behalf of VAST, but I think the reason that VAST has chose Commvault as such a great partner is, we've been in industry for a really long time. We are an enterprise-grade data protection platform, 26 years doing this in the industry. We're recognized by Gartner over and over again, 11 consecutive years. We'll talk a little bit more about some of those accolades later in the presentation. When you think about the amount of data, as you mentioned, it's not about something anymore. It's about being able to recover an entire data center or an entire, platform. We're managing over 2.5 exabytes of data right now under Commvault data protection. And we are trusted by, greater than 100,000 customers. The majority of those customers are high-end enterprise customers, customers in, the top fortune, if you will. So, I mean, just this partnership and the introduction of these two companies, and you're going to hear a lot more from both of us. So we talked a little bit, George, about Gartner, right? And, anytime we present in front of a customer, George, or in front of a partner, we're wearing the logo. We're immediately biased by our opinions and what we're going to say in those meetings. But, what makes it real is when the industry speaks for you. And when you take a look at this slide here, when you think about the data protection category, data center, cloud, edge environment use cases, 3 consecutive years, Commvault has been ranked #1 in each of those categories. And that's the reason enterprises are trusting Commvault to secure and protect their data every day.
That's fantastic, Chad. That's pretty impressive. We really together want customers to rethink data protection. And we want them to rethink it from a standpoint of, if you think about traditional data protection today, there's still tape, there's purpose-built backup appliances. Some people are using hybrid spinning disk solutions. There's the cloud, and there's also all flash systems. The problem with those systems are they all come with a compromise. Let's face it, it's pretty much price versus performance, scalability issues, reliability issues, as well as, again, that TCO wrapper that makes for a data protection solution that could last for many years. So we want customers to rethink recovery. Commvault combined with Vast Data is the fastest recovery mechanism available on the planet today. We want you to rethink scalability. We don't sell model numbers that have a fixated amount of capacity, amount of performance per controller. We have infinite scale. We want you to rethink the total cost of ownership. Sure, there's other flash systems in the marketplace today, but they come with a price tag that makes it not conducive to use for traditional 30, 60, 90-day backup, or maybe even longer-term backup and archive, right? Whether that's a 2-year, 7-year, lifetime of the patient type retention period or policy in regulated markets today. And resiliency. I always marvel at the fact that there's customers that sometimes in their backup and recovery environment are not thinking of this as the storage of last resort. This needs to be the most resilient solution in the data center today. And that's why a solution like Vast Data offers 7, 8, 9 nines of resiliency in a platform. And then we also want you to rethink security. Fantastic security software available through Commvault. And then when you compound that with the abilities that we have within the Vast Data system itself, we're talking about a real secure environment. And if I wanted to double click on that just a little bit as a data point, if you think about 50 times faster, if I think about, like, for example, the fastest purpose-built backup appliance on the planet and how large that scales and how much performance that provides, if I told you I was 50 times faster with Commvault, think about that. Do you want to recover that database in 1 hour or 50 hours? 1 day or 50 days? 1 week or a year? Will you still be in business then? So it's a very much a practical reason why you have to rethink what we're able to offer from a recovery standpoint. When I talk about 100 times more scalable, what if you had one large system, multi-protocol, multi-use case, being able to be used for backup, recovery, on-premise cloud, and it could be at exabyte scale in a single deduplication pool. Think about the savings that gives, but also the ease of use, the simplicity to maintain an environment such as that. And then when something gets to be that big and so scalable, you think about size and space and power and cooling. We'll always win that war. We'll always win that battle, right? Obviously, the way that our systems are designed, the platforms that we're using, we give and offer customers always a savings when it comes to space, power, cooling, and network. So again, we want you to rethink those backup and recovery economics, far different than what you're used to today.
Yeah, George, that's great. Those economics are amazing. And you touched on the security piece. I mean, when you think about Commvault, right? And being the only data protection platform on the planet, as you like to say, we're the only ones that can proactively help customers mitigate ransomware attacks, right? In our ThreatWise product. That's been a game changer for us. It's one of our fastest growing products right now, where we are proactively setting honeypot traps. We're alerting customers. I mean, you talked about, the speed to recovery. Imagine by having Commvault, if you can quickly identify that you've been hacked by ransomware instead of 90 days later, what if we can alert you on day 1 or day 5? How much money, how much data is that going to save you as an organization? And then being able to recover at speed with vast data. I mean, you just can't beat it. And, we believe at Commvault, and we know that we have always had the best security posture in the industry. And we're really bringing that story to life. When you think about what's changed in the industry with ransomware, how CISOs are now owning the budget and there's no data protection purchases until the CISO says so. And when you bring our security posture in front of enterprises, it just can't be beat. I mean, you talk about automated recoveries all the way down to a file level of a last known good copy if you are hit by an attack, and being able to recover from that last known good copy all the way down to a file level, and being able to automate that and make it that much quicker for a customer. And the integration across all of the platforms, all the way from on-prem through the edge and the cloud, Commvault security posture is second to none. And, George, we've been talking about this partnership, right? We announced it on June 21st, you and I being part of the initial meetings of what we call internally Project Pathfinder, right? And it's not just a two companies coming together saying, hey, let's go sell together in the field, right? It's more than that. We put our money where our mouth was, George. We got in the labs together. We created real technical integrations. When you think about it, you'll hear from a joint customer later today, Expedient, and how that's helped them, how simple it was for them to deploy out of the box because of the work we did in the labs together. It's just an amazing validated partnership with great futures, a great roadmap. And I love that we're doing this from a technical integration, making it so much easier for our customers to consume our two technologies together.
I think that's so well put. And I think really the important part for our audience is, listen, a lot of companies have a go-to-market strategy, right? They can come together and they can put together some architecture and discuss what we could do better together. But I think the best part of this is the way that, we've put vast clusters in the Commvault lab. We have Commvault software in the vast lab, and we're actually working and designing on that roadmap to continue to have a robust solution to meet our customers and clients' needs. So it's not just a solution for today, but it's also a solution for tomorrow. And it just, I think, has a lot to do with what our two companies are doing together, and reminds all of our customers that, hey, listen, yeah, you need to get together with your channel partners and connect with your Commvault and VAST people to talk about these better together designs.
Absolutely. And some of those benefits that we talk about, George, with Commvault, customers, enterprise customers, they choose us every day because our broadest workload that we support in terms of protecting the data. Anything from a legacy system, could be an AS400, all the way through to Kubernetes in the cloud, right? We can protect all of the data. There's nothing an enterprise will bring to us that we say, sorry, we can't protect that data. That's why enterprises choose us, and we do it in a very simple manner. We recover faster than our competitors, especially partner with vast data. I mean, you talked about it earlier, those economics and how quickly you can recover. And we talked about the security posture. At the end of the day, what do backup admins want? What do CISOs want? They want to be able to go home every day and feel good about they're not going to get hacked. And if something does occur, they need the comfort, as you said, the last line of defense. They need to be able to recover that data, even if they get hit with ransomware. And that's what Commvault and Vast Data together do.
Without a doubt. And we do it together without any compromises, right? You talk about recover faster. We're talking about not just instant recovery or instant access. We're talking about instant operations. The ability to, after an event, the ability to almost run operations in an instant format, because now you have a platform that is so highly performant in that environment. And again, without compromise, we're doing it at an archive-like price point, a cloud-like price point. We're doing things, again, like reducing footprint. I think you're going to hear from our partner Expedient talk about that a little bit, where we're taking the mindset of legacy platforms. Remember, we're not a purpose-built backup appliance, right? We're not a hybrid array system. We're not an all-flash system at an exorbitant price point, right? We're a new solution with new next-generation algorithms and design and architecture that gives us the ability to be extremely dense, extremely high performant, and really, again, without any sort of compromise for your environment. And then what's really interesting when you have a large environment, and you don't typically think about these things from a data protection perspective, is when I have an exabyte scale environment, now I could potentially use backup and archive data, work for you, run analytics against that data, and actually use legacy data that you could not really access before to use it for other things in the future. More to come there.
Great point, George.
Oh, I kind of dropped it on the last note, and Chad mentioned it earlier. We're going to have Expedient join us in a session right after this. And you're going to hear from Anthony from Expedient, but Brian Smith, their chief executive officer, who's obviously a partner and a friend to both Commvault and Vast Data. With Vast and Commvault, Expedient is partnering with the best software companies in the industry. Again, we are both highly performant software companies to deliver the most innovative IT solutions in the marketplace. A company the size of Expedient, one of the largest cloud service providers on the planet with many locations, they have choice. They have opportunities and options to use other things, and they do, and they have, right? But the partnership that we have with them today is really exceptional, and we're going to hear from Anthony from Expedient just after this session. So please, if you can, stay with us. That'd be great. And lastly, in closing, I'm sure we have some questions to follow, not just to stick around for Expedient, but also wanted to make sure that you understand that as part of this partnership, we are going through the efforts with the work that we're doing in the lab to put together those best practices and the simple settings and architecture and design that would be required and necessary for a Commvault and Vast solution. You do not have to go it alone. So if you visit us on the web, you'll see some content and materials that speak to the better together strategy of Vast and Commvault, but also, get down into the details of implementation and the value and the benefits that this robust solution can provide. Scott, I think we might have some questions.
Yeah, we've got some questions coming in here. Let's see. First one, they're wondering, how does this joint solution better protect my backup data from ransomware?
Hey, George, I'll take a stab at that one. So, when you think about Commvault, when we protect the data, we do it in a way where the snapshots are immutable. And really what that means is they can't be changed, right? So customers can feel very secure that the protection layers within Commvault and the way they protect the data and write it to the Vast Data systems are in an immutable fashion. And George, if you will, I know there's an additional layer of security should the customer want it when the data the snapshot hits the Vast
That's
cluster.
correct. We refer to those as indestructible snapshots. And again, it's an option and an ability, a capability, if you will, above and beyond what you get already from a robust security solution like Commvault.
And in addition, I think I teased on it a little bit earlier, our ThreatWise product, where no other data protection company offers this, where we can proactively hunt and scan and trap the bad guys and send off alerts if a customer's been infiltrated with a malware attack. So on the security layer, we can really limit and reduce the time to knowledge that customers have of getting hacked. So malware, if you know, I mean, it'll sit within an environment for as long as it can before it starts to actually do what ransomware does and lock everything out and steal the keys and all that. So if we can limit that from 90 days down to 30 days or 15 days or 10 days, proactively, that is a huge ROI.
If you don't mind, I can't help myself. I want to just pile on the back end of that. Think about what Chad just said. The complexity of how to manage after the cyber attack, right? I mean, all the work that needs to be done. I mean, you might not be able to get in the building, let alone get to your emails. Your phones might not work. But when Commvault identifies the, a time and the ability to restore clean data, if you will, that's where VAST also then comes in, because again, if I'm moving data so much faster than anything on the planet, you've already had maybe a week or 2 weeks to get to that point when you can start doing that recovery, that instant access, may I say rocket recovery with VAST data. That's when you want something that's moving fast as the speed of light. And that's where that combination of Commvault and VAST come together to shorten that time for recovery.
Hey, I just wanted to jump in there. You guys have mentioned the speed several times. What is it that accounts for, why your solution is so much faster? What is sort of the core technology elements there?
Well, if I may, Chad, from a VAST standpoint, it's the architecture. I mean, it's a different architecture than anything that's available in the marketplace today, Scott. We're not a purpose-built backup appliance. Purpose-built backup appliances, VTLs came to market decades ago. Purpose-built backup appliances with data reduction, they came to market at the end of the 1990s, the early 2000s. Let that sit there for a minute. These technologies are over 20 years old and what are typically being used still in the marketplace today. So we're not necessarily like an integrated appliance, and we're doing it in one system, what people typically try to accomplish with 3 different systems, tiering within backup and archive, where we do this in one particular system. And the fact that we're an all-flash system today, we're going to give you that performance, right? But it's also more than that. It's our technology. VAST is a company that came to fruition about 7.5 years ago and was built on new technologies that are available today, not based on old spinning disk technologies of the past. So we can write newer algorithms and newer software to be clever about how we write data to the system, be very smart about where we put it in the system in a very clean, organized format, so that when Commvault wants to recover from our system, its access is instantaneous, as opposed to having to rebuild and reconstitute and go through garbage collection and all of these terms and processes of the past. You can't do what VAST does today. You cannot do on a spinning disk system. And it's just a technology, evolution that's been necessary in the data protection world for quite some time. So we're not competing with those types of products because we're different than them. We are the next generation standalone solution for the cyber requirements of recovery today.
And if I can add to that, George, I touched on it slightly earlier. So when you think about recovery from a software perspective from Commvault, when you have to search the data, right? When you have to start looking at where's my good clean copy, right? If I can automate those processes, those features, with a click of a button, Commvault will start to automate that process of finding a clean copy, doing what we need to do within VAST system to go then recover that data, and then coupled with the speed of VAST data, that's what makes this super unique to all of our customers.
So you guys mentioned the partnership announcement on June 21st. And so we've got a roadmap question here from the audience. They're wondering, what can we expect to see from this relationship in the near future?
Chad, I'll go first, and please, you could follow up.
Yeah.
Well, first and foremost, I think it's going to be the ongoing integration. I mentioned we're working cohesively in each other's labs to design a perfect solution end to end, right? And by the way, that work's never done, right? That work is never done. And what we already can deliver today, and by the way, you're going to hear that from Expedient in just a few minutes. What we can already deliver today is extremely robust, but we want to take that to the next level, right? And we want to take that to make the ease of use of a restore, especially around a cyber event, to again be different or more advanced than what's available today. So again, I think the roadmap part of it is important, but also again for our channel partners and our customers in the field, I want them to have a level of, we want them to have a level of confidence, right? That this is again a partnership for the future, right? This is an ongoing partnership built on both organizations wanting to make sure that we deliver something that satisfies both of our customers, right? So it really is a joint better together beyond just the marketing and the marketecture. It's really about design and integration and advancements for today's world.
Yeah, George, not a whole lot to add to that. I mean, you already hit on our work in the labs, and we'll continue to tighten up those integrations. I think you'll see us listen to customers about what they want from the joint solution, and we'll probably build some of those features out as they come to life in real time. You mentioned the partners. In the future, you're going to see our teams coming together within the partner community, doing joint enablement hand in hand. You'll see our field teams come together. So we really want to not just have a technical integration, but we do want to have a true, real partnership in the field and have our channel partners leading the way, helping us drive this solution.
A last question here. So we've got a question from the audience about how often do you recommend testing backup and restore? And I'll just add to that. I assume from the performance of the solution that you're talking about that it can help organizations test, with more speed and more more confidence as far as how frequently they do those tests. You mentioned that Forrester quote about people needing to not testing like their entire systems. Is that something you anticipate with your customers, that they'll do more testing, and how often do you recommend it?
Chad, you want to go first?
Sure. So, I'll tell you, when we're talking to customers, when our sales teams are talking to customers, our executives are talking to customers, one of the first questions in a campaign is, how often do you test your DR strategy? How often do you test your ability to recover, from some type of an event, whether it's ransomware or something else? And I got to tell you, I mean, I don't want to put percentages out there, but more times than not, customers will tell you they don't very often test a full-blown attack. But I think with the rise of ransomware, that's changing. So from a Commvault perspective, what we'll tell customers is they should be probably testing this on a quarterly or monthly basis, just to make sure that their recoverability features can do what they need to do in the event of emergency.
Scott, that is such an intuitive question from the audience, and I'll tell you why. Because whoever asked that question knows it's almost impossible to test some of these recoveries because of the platforms that they have today are so busy, so overtaxed, unable to do test dev. And then the fact of the matter is we've made that easy for them. We've given them that capability and the ability to do that. And really, quite frankly, in a very small format and a small partition potentially of that environment, and gives them the ability to do that. It can be on an everyday basis for different environments. They can do a rotating schedule now that they wouldn't do before. If you went to a customer that can only recover a few terabytes an hour and said, hey, I got to shut down operations to go through a test dev scenario of a 50 terabyte database, they're like, wait, I have other things to do to run the environment, right? And I don't have time for that. Well, you need to make time for that. This needs the most resilient part of your environment. So the fact that we can do that so readily today, so separate and different from what you've had in legacy systems. Yeah, that capability is there. And it's kind of like one of those underlying benefits that maybe we don't all necessarily talk about after the fact is, yeah, you get all those capabilities, but now you can do things like, think about that. Just test dev now in a regular daily basis.
All right. Well, George and Chad, this has been a great discussion so far. We'll take a break for a survey about assets and a prize drawing, and then we'll be back with you guys and Anthony from Expedient to talk about the deployment of your joint solution.
Thank you, Scott. Thanks, Chad.
Okay, so here's that poll question, and we appreciate your feedback on additional resources you'd like to see from VAST and Commvault. I'd also like to remind you all about the handouts. We've got links from both VAST and Commvault for you there. One of the links goes to a description of the joint solution, and one is a preview sort of that Expedient story that we'll hear a bit more here in a minute. So be sure to check those out if you'd like some more detail. Also, it's time for our next prize drawing. And the winner of the $300 Amazon gift card for this half hour is Cyril Azule from Arizona. So congratulations to Cyril Azule. We'll be in touch about claiming your prize. Okay, well, thanks to everybody who responded to the poll. We do appreciate your feedback. And because we're going to have some of these guys back, we'll have this poll back up here in a couple of minutes. So I'm not going to leave it up as long as usual. So let's go ahead and move on to that. So for our next session here in the Data Protection DR MegaCast, we'll be bringing back Commvault and VAST along with a customer of their joint solution. So I'm going to welcome back George Axberg from VAST and Chad Blackwell from Commvault, and they're joined by their joint customer, Anthony Jackman, who's Vice President of Strategy and Innovation at Expedient. So Anthony, welcome. Why don't you get us started for this segment of the conversation?
It's great to be here today. My name is Anthony Jackman. I'm Expedient's Vice President of Strategy and Innovation, and I lead the team that's responsible for all of our product development, product management, as well as a lot of our vendor relationships, because Expedient really functions well by partnering with the best software and hardware companies in the business and creating really innovative solutions.
Hey guys, welcome back. Chad Blackwell again from Commvault.
And good afternoon. Again, George Axberg, Global Vice President of VAST Data for the Data Protection Division. So, welcome everyone. Hey, Anthony, could you please take us through for our audience maybe a brief overview of who Expedient is and what it is that you do?
Sure. Expedient likes to describe ourselves as what we call a full stack cloud service provider. And really what that means is it's not just some cloud compute that you swipe your credit card and then you run a workload. It's the cloud compute platform that we very thoughtfully designed to integrate well with all of the other products that we know enterprises need to use to really effectively run their workload. And we really cross a lot of areas here. So obviously what we call enterprise cloud, this is our shared compute platform. We run this across our 14 data centers throughout the US. That's kind of the big bulk cloud shared model. On the other end of the spectrum, we have edge compute. Expedient Edge is a very small box. We can drop it in any client's data center, in a warehouse, really anywhere it needs to be, and give them a cloud operating model anywhere. And we also can take that to virtual desktops. So everyone knows since COVID, a lot of people are working from home, and this gives enterprises a great way to secure their end users. And then it's all the other services that go on top to make that a cohesive experience, right? How do we back those machines up? How do we recover them? How do we do disaster recovery? And then we even dip our toe into the modern workspace with things like cloud native or multi-cloud management of the hyperscalers.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, sounds really complex here, and you guys are a great partner. But I'd like to understand. Tell the audience what were the principal drivers for you to really for Expedient to seek out a new solution when pulling this all together for your customers.
Sure. So when you think about what it takes to run backups at that scale, it is a lot of hardware and it is a lot of software. Expedient has hundreds of petabytes of client data backed up that we've been running for many years. And you know that infrastructure ages, infrastructure needs to be replaced, but we've got to do that in a way that's transparent to our clients. We've also got to do it in a way that's quite efficient for Expedient, because the more efficiently we can work, the more value we can deliver back to our clients, and the lower we can drive the costs of our solution. So specifically here, we were on some aging backup infrastructure. It was time to refresh it. And we just didn't really have an appetite to go buy a bunch of spinning disks and to eat up tens or hundreds of cabinets of space and to chew up a bunch of power. We really wanted to find a more efficient way to make this transition.
Anthony, why don't you tell us a little bit more about the coverage that you have for our clients today?
Sure. The last slide that you up, it was kind of an icon soup, if you will. It really just talks about the number of products that are required to really build these solutions, and those solutions are available across our 14 data centers throughout the U.S. But again, we also can stretch that anywhere a client may need. So all of our data centers are interconnected with redundant 100 gig backbone. We also have 100 gig connections to all the hyperscalers to give our clients that low latency, high bandwidth connection to other services they may be using. But then again, we also have built and developed our products to really stretch outside of our four walls, because our goal is to give clients a consistent operating experience no matter where their workload needs to run. And we don't want to dictate where a client's workload should run.
That's excellent. In my experience in working with Expedient, quite frankly, you've taken what could be considered to be quite complex, the ultimate sophistication, and made it extremely simple. Was there anything in particular that you gravitated towards with the Commvault VAST solution, or something you were looking for us to solve together that made it a decision, an easy one?
Yeah, absolutely. So first off, you really hit it on the head there, is that it is complex. Running this many bits and pieces with thousands of clients under the covers can be complex, and we need to simplify it. When you talk about a backup infrastructure, you're talking about, as I said before, many cabinets, lots of networking involved, lots of iron. You have to bring in even the data center design people to figure out where you can land that power workload. So the more we could shrink that down, we take the complex and we make it simple. So we've partnered with Commvault for many years, and they have best of breed backup software that is making the software side of it simple. And then with VAST, what we've done is taken a formerly complex hardware design and made it out of the box. We just know it works. It's extremely dense. It's extremely easy to use. There's a lot of great telemetry around it. And probably most importantly, it's very performant. So we have actually increased our clients' service level without charging them anymore. It's the same service they've been subscribing to. We're going to give them a higher level of service and just deliver more value back to them.
That's great. Thanks. I mean, Anthony, I know you recently just deployed the solution, and George and I have been in a lot of meetings together about this joint partnership with Commvault and VAST. And are you able to share with everyone any benefits that you're already seeing from this joint solution between VAST Data and Commvault?
Sure. So first one is consolidation, which is really big. We've taken what previously was big and we've now made it small. Simplicity is certainly one, but where we really get into what's unique about it, it's in the amount of data reduction that we are seeing to further drive down costs. So our Commvault infrastructure for years compresses data, deduplicates data, seals it in a database. It works quite well. We get a good amount of data reduction. And everyone kind of knows once data has been reduced, you can't really reduce it again, typically. That has not been our experience with VAST. We took our Commvault data and we put it on VAST. And this wasn't some test data that we created in a lab. This was real world data for hundreds of tenants that we've been able to move over. And what we see is that we get, roughly a 2-to-1 or even a little in excess of 2-to-1 data reduction on top of what Commvault has already given us. So that was one of the things that we didn't think we would see. Was kind of, we're not going to believe that until we see it, but fortunately that really did play out.
Wow.
The other thing that we saw was a validated, what I'd call extreme level of performance that was almost scientific. So when you get a quote from VAST, it kind of says right on the quote, this is the performance you should expect. I always take that with a grain of salt. I work with a lot of vendors, always take it with a grain of salt and really never believe anything until you test it. So we put a system in place and we, again, moved real client data. We kind of bulk loaded about a half a petabyte of data into a VAST system. Saw that 2-to-1 data reduction happening live. But more importantly, the ingest rate exceeded what VAST told us it would, and it exceeded it for a long period of time, meaning we saw, you always have that initial ingest that is pretty great, and then it'll typically dive down over time. We maintained a consistent write rate for over 24 hours straight, and ingested a half a petabyte of data into what is actually a small vast system. It was just our test. So that validated the right numbers. And then from a backup perspective, everyone cares about recovery. So read is very, very important. And we were also able to validate the read numbers by rehydrating that data to a different platform. So we brought it in from platform A and we pumped it out to platform B. And again, the numbers that we saw actually slightly exceeded what VAST told us it would do.
That's great. I mean, George, proverbial fist pump, because those are numbers that we saw or we were told, the additional deduplication and things of that nature that we got out of the lab. But hearing it, from Anthony here and Expedient just takes it to another level.
I agree, especially around the instant recovery capabilities. That's what really gets us all excited. We're in this business for a reason. It used to be all about backup, certainly not all about recovery. And I think our partnership is really, showing the performance levels that we've kind of expected. But I think Expedient's experience has been one that we're really proud of. Thank you so much, Anthony.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Anthony.
All right. Well, we've got some audience questions here. Anthony, one of them here, they're wondering, were there any surprises during the testing or deployment phases?
The surprises was really just that it went quite well. Anytime you bring on a new product, there are always hiccups, there are always hangups. That's just the nature of the business. It's not even necessarily a negative thing. It just happens. It was a surprise to us how smooth it went from platform launch to deploying the architecture that Commvault and VAST had jointly designed. And then also to as I mentioned earlier, the actual deduplication rate and the actual performance rate for ingest of data. It was quite surprising to us that all those things ticked the exact boxes that they were supposed to.
How do you expect that your customers will benefit from the solution?
So our customers are going to benefit. First off, availability of data is always number one. A key role in backup is you do not lose data, and data must always be available. This is a very robust solution, both in terms of data durability and availability. So our clients are going to continue to benefit from that. They always have it Expedient, but this is kind of taking it to the next level. And again, we are also increasing their service level in terms of what they can expect for both backup times as well as restoration times. This is all data that was previously sitting on spinning disks, and we are effectively upgrading these clients' environments at zero cost to them. It's completely transparent. They don't see that any change is happening. It's all behind the scenes. Expedient is dealing with that. And we've effectively modernized our clients' backup infrastructure on their behalf.
Yeah, you mentioned some of those durability and availability features that are different with this solution. Can you go into that a little bit more?
Sure. Unique to VAST's architecture is that it is a lot of data in a very small space, and it is highly resilient from many disk failures without creating a lot of overhead. So some of VAST's unique innovations with the way they do locally decodable erasure codes and things like that allow us to have a high level of durability where you could lose multiple disks in a system, and your client is not going to know that that's happened. That's on us Expedient to just replace the disks, allow that data to rebuild. The important part there is that it's doing it with only a couple % overhead. Now, why does a client care about that? Well, that translates to a lower cost to them over time. So very unique solution that's really delivering a lot of value.
Gotcha. Oh, that's great. Thanks. You also mentioned the scale, of your operation, and it sounded like the half a petabyte. Did you say that was a test?
That was
getting that data.
Correct. That was a test. That was roughly what we thought we could fit into one appliance. Turns out after dedupe we could have fit a lot more, but we moved it over into the appliance as a test. Across Expedient's landscape, we have many multiples of that in current backup data sitting on Commvault.
Yeah, so I'm curious with that too. I mean, that's so much scale. I think it'd be interesting for our audience too. Like, how long did it take you to sort of set it up? Was it time consuming to start the process, or did that go pretty quickly?
The longest part of the process was going through purchasing, shipping, physically receiving the gear. Actually, standing it up was pretty easy. So the way Vast does deployments, it's a very intentional design. We worked through a site survey with our solution architect that went into everything, so much as how many inches of space are in front of the cabinet, so that we knew when that server showed up, it was going to fit into the cabinet appropriately. All the wiring diagrams were taken care of, and Vast dispatched an installer to our site that worked through all of this, that labeled every cable, that plugged it in, that ran the launch script, and it really came up as we expected it to. And because we had done that pre-launch survey, all of our networking was configured ahead of time to just accept the system. So we went from, unboxing servers to fully functional system in, call it 4 or 5 hours.
Oh, wow. Very nice. Okay. And obviously your business is growing. As your environment grows, how do you anticipate the solution will grow?
So we've designed it from the start to expand to kind of mass scale. So from a network perspective, we've designed it assuming that this is going to grow to, hundreds of petabytes one day. And that's kind of the beauty of the system is, Commvault's abstracting what's behind the scenes. It's kind of just pointed at a data store, and it's gonna write to Vast. And from Vast's perspective, when we need to expand, we call them up and say, if we just need more capacity and not more performance, they ship us a D box, we plug it in, we join it to the system, and it's going to transparently move data where it needs to go and just grow our capacity. If we see, hey, we need a little bit more performance, we're going to add some of those C nodes in or the front end, and that'll easily allow us to deliver more performance if we need it.
Nice. Maybe Anthony, a last question for you. Just, do you have any tips for anybody who's, considering the Commvault or Vast solution, like best practices, in your experience from going through the process?
Yeah, I do. This one's easy. Read the best practices guide that was put together by Commvault and Vast. It really has a lot of detail in it, and I will say that we independently validated what was stated in that document. Things like the dedupe block size. Hint, the one you should use is not what you would think you should use to get max data reduction. So they did testing in their labs, and they really thought this out quite well. So I guess the takeaway is you don't have to do a lot of thinking. Really read the guide, talk to Vast and Commvault directly. And my advice would be to implement it as it has been designed, as we found that to be the best design with the highest performance and the greatest data reduction ratio.
Gotcha. Super. Yeah. And, I guess, last question for George and Chad, any thoughts, as far as, if people want to get started with the solution, sort of based on some of the stuff that Anthony's talked about here, what's the best way for them to move forward?
Chad, if I may first of all, Anthony, thank you so much. Your comments were fantastic. And actually how you summarize at the end, it's a great endorsement of what Chad and I just spoke about in the previous presentation, that the validation work is being done, right? It's being done. It's continuously being done. We actually have a roadmap together, and that we're not letting customers kind of go it alone. That being said, Scott, where's the first place to start? Well, it could be directly with your channel partner. It could also be directly with your Commvault or Vast representative. And we can certainly both help out in making sure that we get together. And there you go. You see that you've got the link there to talk about how we would work together on a similar solution to what we've deployed at Expedient.
Yep. Thanks, George. And again, I'll echo that. Thank you, Anthony. Appreciate the partnership. I echo, reach out to your channel partner, reach out to my partner team in the field, to Vast Data's partner team in the field. And quite honestly, we encourage everybody listening to, ask for a meeting jointly between our three companies. And we would love to, show you what the solution has to offer.
All right, great. Well, Chad, George, and especially Anthony, thank you all three for the session, and really appreciate the from the trenches experience there.
Great. Thank you.
Thank Scott.
Thanks, Scott.
And while we put the poll question up for you again, I'm going to welcome my fellow moderator, Keith Ward, to take it over from here. Keith, welcome.
Hey, thanks very much, Scott. It's I've been hanging around for a while today, and it's been some fantastic learning going on here. Great to see. Okay, so we have got the poll up. You've seen this poll before, very recently, as a matter of fact. We're going to do it again here and just leave it up for a minute. And so I now have the fun part of all of this. So I get to give away another $300 Amazon gift card and grand prize. So let's go ahead and do this thing here. The winner of the gift card, the $300 gift card, is Fred Russo from New Hampshire. And the winner of the latest grand prize, a beautiful Surface Pro 9, is Larch McWaters from Idaho. Congratulations to both of our latest winners. We'll be in touch with you to get you your prizes. And with that, it is time to go to the next session. Very excited to get there. This session is going to be with Hewlett Packard Enterprise. You've probably heard of them. And presenting for them today are Scott Shields and Ken Huffman. I want to thank them both for being here today. Scott and Ken are with us now. And Ken, I believe you are up first. So I will turn it over to you.
Okay. Hey, thank you for the introduction. My name is Ken Huffman. I am a solution business manager for data protection products here at HPE, and I'm with Scott Shields. And we've got a packed agenda for you today. Thank you for attending. And my session, I'm going to cover the first 10 minutes, is going to be quick and fast, covering a lot of products. And then we get to the really good part, and that's where Scott's going to come in and talk about the HPE Cyber Resilience Vault. So we'll get to that. So let's get underway. Like the title slide says, this is the agenda for what we'll cover today. I need to talk about the GreenLake Cloud Platform first, because that is where HPE GreenLake for Backup and Recovery resides, as well as HPE GreenLake for Disaster Recovery. And to talk about HPE GreenLake for Disaster Recovery, I need to cover a little bit about Zerto in case you don't know that. And then, like I said, we'll jump right into the Cyber Resilience Vault. So the GreenLake Cloud Platform, this is HPE's single control plane to manage your entire data center. So that's networking, compute, and storage. You can see those three pillars right above the green box that says GreenLake Cloud Platform. So we've got those three pillars that you can manage your data center from. And then you can see everything else around it. We can wrap services into that. It's built on security and compliance as paramount. So very comprehensive and complete platform. And it is the most mature and capable cloud platform in the market compared to any of our competitors. So it's really exciting. Here's a screenshot of the GreenLake Cloud Platform. And you can see the Aruba Central tile for networking. Data Services Cloud Console is what I'm going to talk to today. That's for managing storage-related products. We've got Compute Ops Management for managing your servers. And then lastly, HPE GreenLake Central for your entire GreenLake infrastructure, all via one cloud platform. That's the compelling thing. So if you click on Data Services Cloud Console, this is a screenshot of that. And you can see up in the top left, backup and recovery. We've got block storage for managing your block arrays like Electra, Primera, and Nimble, HCI. And then what you don't see here is GreenLake for Disaster Recovery. That just launched a couple, 3 weeks ago. So that's not on the screenshot just yet. Looking into the platform, it's kind of a layer cake. So at the very bottom is the infrastructure or hardware. That's the arrays, and that hardware can't do anything without infrastructure services to enable it. So we've got block service to enable the array to store bits. We've got Storage Fabric Manager to manage your fiber channel infrastructure, HCI, and so on. Then once the hardware is enabled with the infrastructure services, then you're going to do something with your data. You're going to store it, move it, modify it, analyze it, and importantly, protect it. So backup and recovery, again, is in the top left. Right next to that is GreenLake for Disaster Recovery, and you can see the Zerto logo there. That's what it's Zerto on our GreenLake Cloud Platform. So that's the GreenLake Cloud Platform. Let's get into backup and recovery. So backup and recovery has a whole bunch of HPE DNA. As a matter of fact, it's all our own technology, and it's technology that we've had for some time. It's very mature, very capable. As a matter of fact, the source-side dedupe that's built into HPE GreenLake for backup and recovery is best in class pretty much in the market. And we've got a slide that shows up to 8x benefit. So the service had to be quick and simple to deploy. It needed to be based on automated protection. So we've got protection policies, and that's the dailies, weeklies, monthlies. It's the retention period. It's immutable or not, that type of thing. And then there are protection groups. So once you create your protection policies and your protection groups, you can just apply new VM workloads to a protection policy, and that policy protects that workload. So next up, manage from anywhere. Like I said, this is a single cloud control plane. You can manage it from a tablet, from a PC, from a laptop, pretty much anywhere, and it's worldwide. So if you have sites around the world, it's that single cloud plane to manage that worldwide infrastructure. And then importantly, at the very last, no need to plan upgrades. That's all handled by HPE in the back end with no downtime. We upgrade the product in the back end. We enable new features, and you'll go into one of your services and you'll see a banner saying, hey, you got this new feature. So all handled by HPE, no need to worry about versioning or patching or anything like that. So backup and recovery, what it is, it protects VMware environments. That's the first thing. It's only VMware at the moment. And it can do instant recovery via local snapshots, rapid recovery via local backups, and then you can push those backups off to the cloud. And I use the term push very intentionally, because the service matured and we added any storage. So before we added any storage, it was only HPE storage you could do snapshots and backups with. Now that we've added any storage via that CBT backup change block tracking, we can now use pretty much any block device to do local backups to. And then again, you can push those off to the cloud. Then we announced that we now protect native AWS resources like EC2 and EBS. And actually, we just announced RDS as well. So we've got 3 AWS resources that we can protect in the cloud and use our source-side dedupe to really save on cost. This next thing is pretty exciting. Into the service is built the ingress and egress fees. There's no surprises. It's all part of the monthly service charge. So you can have a massive failure and do a massive restore with no massive egress fees. And then as the product matured, this is getting into end of last year, you can see that green arrow just popped up. You can now back up direct to the cloud. So you don't need to do a backup locally and then push it off. You can go directly to the cloud. And like I said, we added RDS as another AWS resource we can protect. SQL is another integration that we've got that will launch probably in the next few weeks. And so this service will continue to evolve. All right, I talked about that source-side dedupe and compression. That's this right here. So up to 8 times less capacity needed in the cloud compared to like an Amazon snapshot technology. It's technology we call Catalyst. It's a protocol we've had probably for eight or more years. And it has, like I said, it's mature and it has become very efficient. And you can get up to that 8x less capacity requirement. So last thing, there's a free 90-day trial. There's a link. You go to hpe.com and type in backup and recovery, and it'll take you right to this. You can submit for the free trial and go off and start backing up your data. Okay, I need to skip through Zerto real quick. Zerto, hopefully you know what Zerto is. Zerto is continuous data protection, and it delivers pretty much everything in those colored boxes. Disaster recovery is kind of the pillar of Zerto. We've got also long-term retention capability, cyber attack mitigation. We're going to talk about, Scott's going to talk about that here shortly. But importantly, it protects VMware and Hyper-V environments and can protect to on-prem or cloud like Azure, AWS, things like that. So it's virtualized environments. And then you can see the Kubernetes logos. So we can now protect containerized environments like we do virtualized. And here is the Zerto difference. This truly sets Zerto apart. It's continuous replication. That's that continuous data protection. It's near synchronous by design. Then going around the clock, we write to a journal, not just storage. So we're writing checkpoints every 5 or so seconds, so you can recover really granular back in time. Application consistency. So we're not protecting just one VM. We're protecting groups of VMs together that make up a workload. So you can recover with right order fidelity for application consistency. And then simplicity at scale, it's a single product, no other modules to buy or things like that. All right, next slide. Here's some of the benefits that Zerto has delivered to companies. I'm not going to go through these, but Zerto, when you deploy Zerto, it enables you to save a ton of money. Good example is that first one where they saved $10 million. It was a large company. They consolidated and saved $10 million. So really capable product. All right, GreenLake for disaster recovery. So I've talked about GreenLake for backup and recovery, and I just talked about Zerto, and I said earlier in the presentation that Zerto is really just underneath the covers for GreenLake for disaster recovery. It's exactly what it is. So on that single cloud control plane, not only can you manage your networking, compute, storage, you can protect your full stack workloads with GreenLake for disaster recovery, as you can see on the left, protecting those low RPO workloads, journal-based, very quick recovery. And then for your lower tier workloads, GreenLake for backup and recovery. And again, it's all policy-based and automated, and that you can cover that complete stack with our 2 products on the GreenLake Cloud platform, single cloud control plane again. So what's the difference between GreenLake for disaster recovery and Zerto? So you can see here, GreenLake for disaster recovery is currently intended for smaller deployments. You can see less than 100 VMs. You want flexible billing. You want that cloud-like as a service experience. And then Zerto, to just cut to the chase, is meant for larger deployments for complex migrations and things like that. Then over time, GreenLake for disaster recovery will mature into the full-blown Zerto and be at parity with that. And you can manage Zerto fully from that single cloud control plane. GreenLake for disaster recovery free trial as well. Just like backup and recovery, there's a 90-day free trial. If you go to hpe.com and search GreenLake for disaster recovery, it'll take you right to the product page, and you can request that free trial as well. And I'm going to turn it over to Scott to talk about the really fun stuff.
Thank you very much. So one of the things before we kind of jump into the actual slides here that I'd like to just mention is, in the marketplace today, there's immutable data vaults to protect organizations against cyber attacks. One of the very important aspects of that is there's 3 pillars that really make up an immutable data vault. Number 1, immutability. Number 2, air gapping. And number 3 is the decentralization of the data. And those 3, everybody can do very, very well. The big difference that we here at HPE saw was the fact that being able to recover quickly, right? So RPOs and RTOs and having your applications and data back quickly was critical. And we can do that with the secret sauce of Zerto. So we've created and developed and architected this solution, and we're getting a significant amount of traction. Next slide, Ken. All right, so I wanted to at least create a foundation, a level set here, so that everybody kind of understands why this is so important and how this has become a little different over the last few years. And the reality is cyber attacks and cyber crime has become much more sophisticated over the last few years. In the past, the bad actors would essentially gain access to an environment, and from there, they would encrypt and hope that the end user would pay the ransom. Today, it's a little bit different. They take that dwell time, which you can see here, right after initial access, however they gain access, right? And it's not just brute force through firewalls any longer. There's social networking, there's AI, and there's a variety of different ways that they can access an organization, but they deploy tools, they network map, they take a look at all of the applications. But at the end of the day, what they've started to do is disable security and backup. And that's the scary part. So they're ensuring that you're going to have very limited capabilities around recovery, right? If you don't have backups and you don't have your proactive security products working. So once they encrypt, they know that they have you exactly where they want you. And in 2021, about $1.2 billion was paid out by banks in order to pay ransoms. And about 4% of the folks that actually paid the ransoms got their data back in a reasonable amount of time. So this is why air gapping and immutability recommendations are prevalent throughout the vast majority of guidelines and institutions that are making recommendations on cyber security. Next slide. All right, so what are the objectives of this solution, right? Number one, the vast majority of immutable data vaults and vaulting in general is based upon backup products. And anybody that's leveraged a backup product before knows that data loss windows and recovery windows are significant. Plus, these immutable data vaults are fairly cost prohibitive, especially when you're looking for a clean room on top of that. And as I just stated, impact of ransomware to businesses is higher than it's ever been, just based on the fact that these bad actors are getting more sophisticated as time goes on. So what can we bring to the table, right, for our customers of the Cyber Resilience Vault? Number one, we're able to meet guidelines and requirements as outlined by many of the agencies that are out there today. If it's NIST, Sheltered Harbor, SEC, they are all very much focused today, not just on being preventative, but also on recovery. This is no longer an if statement, it is a when statement. When an organization gets hit, they need to be able to recover and recover quickly. So again, immutability, air gapping, and decentralization is critical. And again, with the secret sauce being Zerto and its ability to recover and recover quickly, we have all the check boxes that any organization would want to protect themselves against an extended outage from any sort of cybercrime. Next slide. All right, so this timeline is just illustrating what a backup solution vault really looks like. And the reality here is this isn't a simple recovery, right? The backup recovery takes time. You have to perform a full data scan. And if we're using the example of 300 terabytes, even at very fast restore speeds, we are typically north of 18 days from a recovery perspective. And this is just about every major competitor on the market today. There's just a lot of process that goes into recovering, leveraging backup. And that's where, again, Zerto plays a huge part in our capabilities because we leverage a journal, we leverage checkpoints, and we have, as Ken had mentioned, continuous data protection, and we have RPOs of seconds, not hours. Next slide, please. All right, so we're just going to build this out real quick so we can just illustrate what the recovery looks like. So Ken, if you want to go ahead and just work through this first one here. So if production environment goes down, you're going to be able to leverage the replication target, select your apps or VMs to recover, select the clean checkpoint from the journal, and then from there, recover all infected workloads within minutes. But what happens if your DR target or your replication target is also hit and is also infected? Next. From there, this is where you leverage the vault. You mount the VMDKs or the VMFS from an immutable snapshot. You power on the vCenter, ESXi, and Zerto VMs, and you recover from the Zerto journal that's sitting and using that clean checkpoint, right? But again, how are we able to do the immutability? How are we able to do the air gapping? So this is on the left-hand side, you see the production environment. One of the things that was released with version 10 of Zerto was inline detection. So every time a change happens within production, we create a checkpoint in our journal. That inline detection is going to be looking for patterns, looking for encryption, right? We want to be proactive in understanding where these attacks are happening as quickly as they happen. because that journal that is sitting in that red outlined box that is our landing zone is going to be accepting and creating this journal with all of those checkpoints. Once those checkpoints are in the journal, they get through SAN-to-SAN replication, they get replicated over to the vault. Now that is an air-gapped connection that is opened for about 4 hours in order to move the changes that happened, and the replicas and the compressed journal get moved right over to the vault. That connection is severed and the data is there. Once it's there, immutable snapshots are created, and from there, no changes can be made to those snapshots. So this architecture is created and built with HPE Portfolio. Those are Electra arrays. We have Aruba networking as well as ProLiant servers. The goal is for that vault to be inaccessible outside of a physical jump box, that RAS VM that sits within the vault itself. That is how you access the vault, but this is sitting in a data center. So somebody would have to walk in and access it from the data center through your normal security measures, two-factor authentication, and so on. Is there any more build out on this? There we go. Yeah, and look, the beauty of this vault is once your data and your immutable copies are there, you can leverage your existing solutions for data scanning, right? Whatever your security products may be, to ensure that the immutable copies that you're going to be recovering will be able to be uninfected, and you can connect into those and leverage those from a recovery perspective. And then lastly, one of the other nice aspects of this is we do leverage HPE's InfoSight, which again is another way to provide detection of anomalous behavior. So once it's sitting on the SAN array in the landing zone, you have the ability to leverage InfoSight, and this will also be able to detect any sort of bad actors or cyber crimes or encryption that's happening within that box. So the three big pillars that we talk about: true air gap, it is decentralized. We have intelligent cyber resilience for on-prem or cloud workloads, and a very aggressive fast time to recover. In most cases, once we power on the vault itself, when there is a recovery that's necessary, for instance, a 300 terabyte recovery should take anywhere from about 4 to 6 hours to recover. And like I mentioned previously, the typical competitive solutions that are out there are minimum of 18 to 20 days. The vast majority that we've seen from a 300 terabyte solution is north of about 30 days to recover, and we are looking at a few hours tops with our solution. I think that's it here.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, we can go right into Q&A.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's do that, and let's go into the Q&A with a poll. Why don't we? Thanks for that great presentation, Ken and Scott. So the poll question: what more would you like to know? What more information would you like to get from HPE? A lot of stuff was presented today, and I'm sure there's going to be lots of folks who really want to know more. In the meantime, I'm going to leave this poll question up while we get to some questions. One thing that I wanted to mention here that made me sit up, really, one slide when you were going through them, was the recovery timeline from an attack. A minimum of 18 days to recover these days. That is a pretty darn scary thought, I have to say. So you guys ready for some Q&A now?
Yep, good to go.
All right, excellent. So we're going to dive right in. Chad wants to know how GreenLake's consumption model accommodates varying workloads, resource demands, and growth patterns within an organization, and what mechanisms are in place to optimize cost efficiency while maintaining performance and scalability. A lot there.
Yes, there is. Scott, you want to take that, or you want me to take a stab?
I would say go ahead and take a stab at that one.
Okay. Yeah, this could be an involved answer. That was an involved question for sure. So yeah, we've got really two sides to GreenLake is the way I'll put it. So we've got our GreenLake. I'll call it traditional, and that is a full service. You can wrap in what we call GreenLake Managed Services (GMS), and it's like a fully managed managed for you. Pardon me. So HPE can manage start to finish everything, and that's the GreenLake traditional. And then there's the GreenLake Cloud Platform, which is our new kind of a cloud management plane, and that is an as a service offering, and it's more of a managed by you. That's the intent, not that you can't have some of it managed by HPE or a service provider. But yeah, so GreenLake Cloud Platform is as a service. It's really put it akin to Amazon Marketplace, right? Or AWS Marketplace, pardon me. That's the intent there for the GreenLake Cloud Platform. But the benefit to it is that single cloud management control plane. That's the compelling part for GreenLake Cloud Platform.
All right. I think you did that really well. Okay. Let's see. Pam wants to know, how is deduplication achieved, and what are the parameters for dedupe?
Okay, so dedupe is achieved, that's specific to the GreenLake for backup and recovery.
Right.
And again, the Catalyst protocol is what I'd mentioned in presentation, and that is a unique protocol to HPE, very secure, by the way, because NFS or CIFS are very common protocols, so you'd have more people wanting to hack them. Catalyst is unique to HPE. It's unique to Store Once, which is our backup appliance, and we've employed that technology in GreenLake for backup and recovery. So yeah, it's source side dedupe and compression, and to explain how it works is a little involved, but the fact is we've got sophisticated hash table technology that is really the backbone for the source side dedupe.
Great. Okay. Emily or Emu wants to know, my regular task is to restore full images of my backups from my cloud VMs. Can this solution, I assume they mean GreenLake, do automated backup testing?
Well, so they were talking about restores and then doing backup testing.
Yeah.
So I'm a little confused by that.
You could separate them out if you want, yeah.
Yeah, so the fact is, yes, you can restore the full image, or you can do granular restores as well. It's pretty standard backup technology. Backup testing, I think the answer is yes, because you would execute a backup to make sure it works, I think is, best I can put to it.
Okay. And I think we have time for just one more question before we start to wrap this up. So here's the last one for you. Is the cyber resilience vault available today?
Yeah, I'll take that one. Yeah, it is. We launched it officially about probably 6 weeks ago, and we've had significant traction. It has been all encompassing for many on the team. So we are ready to go and have presentations and conversations about the Cyber Resilience Vault as early as this afternoon, if you like.
Hey, can you just give us maybe a sneak preview, just in terms of what kind of feedback are you getting from the early adopters? Has it been a real positive experience?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I lean into it quite a bit in the presentation, but our primary goal to differentiate ourselves in the market revolves around these recovery times, right? So many of the folks that we've talked to from an early adopter perspective were just under the impression that from an immutable data vault perspective, they are going to have to live with multiple days of recovery to ensure that the infections are under control and are not going to proliferate. In our cases, leveraging Zerto and the HPE Cyber Resilience Vault, very easily we can recover in hours, and that has been the primary driver for any conversations we've had up to this point. The big thing being folks and many organizations today can tell you exactly what an hour of downtime is going to cost them from a revenue perspective, And when we start having return on investment conversations, this is where the Cyber Resilience Vault really shines.
Oh, 100%. All right. Last question for either of you. If somebody wants to get started with HPE or find out more, what do you recommend they take for their next step?
Scott, you want to take that, or I can run with it?
Yeah, I mean, from our perspective with the Vault, HPE's website has directions on contacts and the ability to fill out the site, and we'll reach out unless and then there's also trials, Ken, right, for both GLDR and GLBR.
Correct. Yep. Yeah, and ultimately, another good answer is that we are fully channel driven. So talk to your channel partner or your reseller and put them in contact with your HPE resources, and we can help you out on any products, whether it's storage, networking, or compute.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, gentlemen, that is a wrap for this session. Thank you so much for your time and your expertise, and for being on with us today. I want to remind everyone that HPE does have a handout in the handout section that you should also download. So lots of ways to learn more about HPE and their solutions. So again, thanks for joining us.
Keith, thanks for having us.
It's been a
Thank
pleasure.
you.
All right. So next up, it is time for our next set of prize drawings. And once again, we are giving away a $300 Amazon gift card and another grand prize. The winner of the gift card is Richard Martin from New Jersey. And the winner of the grand prize, that Surface Pro, is Chris Lee from Vermont. Congratulations to you, Richard and Chris. We will be in touch very soon about getting you your prizes. So it is now time for our next presentation in this MegaCast. And for that, I'm going to turn this puppy over to the amazing Jess Steinbeck. Hiya, Jess. Great to see you again.
Yeah, I do love a good puppy, Keith. That's great. I am joining in the all-star lineup. You guys have talked to Scott, you got to talk to Keith, and now I'm sorry to say it's my turn. So you're all stuck with me for the end of the day. Keith, thanks for such a great couple of sessions there.
Absolutely, absolutely. Been a lot of fun, and looking forward to seeing what's going to happen from here out. So take it away.
All right, we're going to keep things moving right along, and the fun is definitely not stopping, because I am so excited to get into our next awesome session here and our incredible expert presenter from Kasten by Veeam, and that is Matt Slotton, Principal Solutions Architect. Matt, I have to say I'm a big fan of the Kasten by Veeam team. You guys always do some great presentations. I know we want to leave some time for questions at the end, so I'm going to step right back out of the scene again and hand things on over to you. Take it away, Matt.
Awesome. Thank you, Jess. I appreciate it. Very excited to be here today. And thank you for the warm intro as well. And you're going to help us drive it home. So I appreciate you teeing me up. So awesome. But hello, everybody. My name is Matt Slotton. I'm a member of the Kasten by Veeam team. I'm a principal solution architect. And obviously today we are talking about choosing our next generation data center protection and DR solution. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and dive in. And definitely, just some housekeeping issues. I'm sure as everyone has seen, feel free to post any questions in the Q&A. Obviously, I will see them. I know Jess will see them and tee them up for me. And obviously, we'll have Q&A at the end as well. So please don't hesitate to throw any questions in there. Awesome. So jumping in, right, guys. So a couple of key stats. We talk about Kubernetes, we talk about cloud native data protection and data mobility. What we're seeing today is roughly 74% of organizations think that traditional container-based applications can be backed up the same way as traditional infrastructure. This may be no surprise for those on the call and based on who I work for and what we're talking about, but that is, to be clear, that is not the case, right? Kubernetes Kubernetes workloads are fundamentally different than physical machines and virtual machines. We can't just back up things like etcd. We can't just snapshot our VMs or worker nodes because there's no guarantee that that will come back the state in which we took them, right? So etcd, we always say it's kind of the equivalent of trying to snapshot your vCenter and saying that you've got backup of your all of your VMs, right? That, as we all know, that's not the case. Moving to another stat, we see that 85% of companies have experienced at least one ransom attack in the past year. And this number is increasing. So, taking my Kasten hat off briefly, I actually used to work for an InfoSec company. This is obviously, something that they're very much keeping eyes on. From a data protection perspective, this is obviously becoming more and more important, right? So organizations facing ransomware attacks in the wild, we're seeing it more and more. Obviously we're seeing real world implications too. So I know it was a couple of years ago now, but there was a large oil and gas provider, particularly in the Southeast, that was hit with a ransomware attack. And, we obviously, if you live in the US, you probably experienced some of the outcomes, at least the East Coast. And obviously that was driven by ransomware. So, definitely an increasing problem and with real world implications. Moving along, 93% of organizations think multi-cloud support for container backup is important, right? So that again makes sense. We want to make sure that we can support multiple clouds, multiple vendors, public, private, whatever infrastructure, whatever Kubernetes flavor you're deploying, your storage or compute of choice. We want to make sure that we can support that multi-cloud approach, or hybrid cloud approach. And lastly, 75% of organizations indicate a skill shortage in their Kubernetes backup and recovery teams, right? So this is definitely something that we're seeing. There's very, very fast adoption of cloud native applications. It's obviously accelerating pipelines. We see a lot of developers love it, right? Because we as traditional infrastructure people or platform ops can kind of get out of the way in many ways for our developers. But at the same time, it's a kind of a different barrel of monkeys we have to manage, right, relative to traditional infrastructure. So we definitely see that. And we'll dive into a little bit when it comes to backup, recovery, and mobility, but very important to keep that simple. Let that kind of work easily for you so you can focus on pleasing your organization and making sure that you can meet those business needs and aligning with your developers. So moving right along, so just in terms of, why are we here? Why are we talking about Kubernetes backup? I thought Kubernetes was just ephemeral, right? I don't care about data in Kubernetes. That was the case in 2016. Unfortunately, in 2023, or fortunately rather, we are seeing more and more persistent data appear within Kubernetes, which makes sense, right? So for our developers, it's much easier in many ways to deploy, MySQL or your database next to your application, right? If you're running a web server, it really embraces the portability as well. Some of the benefits of cloud native platforms. And obviously can minimize latency, right? So as opposed to keeping data outside of your cluster, you then have to worry about how far is that data away from my workloads that are in Kubernetes, especially if I'm moving among clouds as well, that becomes a consideration. So long story short, we're seeing more and more persistent data appear within Kubernetes, which is great, but we obviously need to make sure that we are able to back that up, recover, and move that data along with our applications. So Kubernetes production demands more than just backup. So you'll notice that I talked about move and recover, right? So kind of moving quickly through this, but obviously, as we say, backups are only as good as your ability to recover them, right? So if we're taking backups, that's great. But we have to make sure that when we restore those, our data or applications are in a state that is usable, right? Otherwise, it's not particularly useful. We need to make sure we're doing this in a secure manner, right? So we'll talk about Kasten's capability with built-in encryption and ability to use customer managed keys. We're integrating with things like Red Hat ACS or Advanced Cluster Security. These are all really important things we need to be aware of, again, kind of in the face of those ransomware attacks, looking at object immutability as well, support there. And lastly, data freedom, right? So I think oftentimes Kasten or Veeam in general just is classified as a backup and recovery solution, but very important that we also offer application mobility, right? So the same mechanisms that we use to back up and restore workloads, we use to actually allow you to move data across Kubernetes distributions, across clouds, public, private. We're an open ecosystem. Any CNCF certified Kubernetes distribution we can support. So I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit, but just these are key things to keep in mind when we're looking at Kubernetes backup solutions. So high level, I've already kind of covered some of this, but a couple of key things about casting K10. We are Kubernetes native, right? So we are built for Kubernetes with Kubernetes in Kubernetes, right? So there's a few advantages there. Obviously, ability to be deployed dynamically, simple Helm command to actually install install Kasten K10 in your environment in Kubernetes. Also, we're able to inherently interrogate namespaces, right? Because we are sitting in Kubernetes, we can see namespaces as they're spun up. So really important, if we're working with different developer organizations within our organization, we can see if new namespaces are being deployed or created, if we're not controlling that with policy, and we can automatically apply casting K10 policy to back up those workloads as well, right? So we have instant policy application. We can make sure we're meeting our organization's SLAs, RTO and RPO targets. Talked about security everywhere, obviously very important, ransomware protection, encryption, things like key management as well. These are all things built into casting K10. And I apologize, I'm going to move pretty quickly because we do have a demo at the end, and I know that's kind of where the bread and butter is. So I'm going to try to move through the slides quickly to make sure I leave room for the demo as well as questions. Ease of use, though, just to move a little bit faster, run through this. Ease of use, very important, right? We talk about organizations. I think it was 75% of organizations see a shortage in Kubernetes capabilities within their organization. So we want to make sure that our backup, recovery, and mobility solution is easy to use, right? We don't want to focus on having to manage that solution. We want to focus on our core business and supporting our developers and our organization. And as mentioned before, full ecosystem support, right? Basically any cloud, any CNCF Kubernetes distribution, really any application that can be deployed to Kubernetes. We support all major storage vendors, major public cloud providers, on premises. Again, choose your compute, choose your storage, and we'll dive in a little bit deeper to that in a second. So moving right along, a quick, what is Kubernetes native backup? A quick kind of architectural diagram of how K10 fits into Kubernetes and can help you back up your Kubernetes workloads. You'll see there at the bottom, we have block and file storage support. We lean heavily on CSI drivers and the snapshot capability, but at the same time, we also have in-tree support. When I say in-tree, we mean like the big cloud providers, right? So AWS, Azure, Google, what have you, IBM, Oracle as well, but also any certified CSI driver, which we are constantly qualified. Actually, just finished Oracle's recently. We fully support OKE and Oracle cloud infrastructure as well. But long story short, again, freedom of choice here, right? So moving up the stack, any Kubernetes distribution we support. We can obviously back up cloud native apps deployed in the Kubernetes. That's our core, one of our core tenants there. But also important to note, KubeVirt VMs, right? So ability to actually back up VMs in Kubernetes. So for those that were unaware, we can actually deploy VMs directly in Kubernetes now. So it gets a little funny if you want to deploy your worker nodes via VMs and then deploy VMs. Obviously, you probably want bare metal nodes there, but long story short, we can back that up as well. We have the ability to leverage blueprints, right? So blueprints are really important for crash consistent or application aware snapshots. So for those workloads like database workloads that we were looking at earlier, things like Maria, Mongo, MySQL, we can use blueprints to actually do things like quiesce our workloads, right? To actually take our snapshots and perform our backup. And then we can obviously send that to external storage targets, typically S3, but we support NFS. We support Veeam as a backup repository. Obviously, we are Veeam, part of Veeam now is at Kasten. And this is how we get our immutability, right? So very important there from our ransomware protection. Moving right along, so there's some fun animation there. Kasten, we are considered the number one Kubernetes data protection solution by a GigaOM survey there. So obviously take that with what you will, but very proud of that. And we are constantly innovating, making sure that we are keeping ahead of the curve there. So as mentioned before, we are purpose-built for Kubernetes. Kasten K10, obviously, we are scalable, easy to use. We've got a nice, fun interface. Makes it easy to monitor and deploy policies. Worth mentioning, though, too, for traditional infrastructure, because we are a Veeam company now, if you need to back up VMs or physical machines or databases that aren't deployed to Kubernetes, obviously, K10 would not be the solution there, but Veeam, as our parent company, they have plenty of solutions. So long story short, if you need to back it up, we can help you out. So obviously security, as mentioned before, really important there. Early threat detection, we can make sure we're raising flags early, tying into things like ACS, AWS Guard Duty, making sure that we are raising flags as soon as we see threats or any sort of issues impacting our backups. So I want to make sure we can tie into those monitoring and security incident managers. Obviously, support encrypted and immutable backups. We support out-of-the-box end-to-end encryption. As mentioned before, we also support things like HashiCorp Vault, as well as AWS customer managed keys, and very quick recovery. Right, so that's the key here. Very important that we have an easy UI, and that actually can really help in terms of your recovery time. Moving right along, so Cast and K10 caters to organizational needs, right? So whether you're a storage or backup administrator or a platform ops engineer, obviously we have legs in both camps. So we looking at the storage and traditional backup approach. We have policy-driven backup, wide storage support, no vendor lock-in. We adhere to that 3-2-1 principle, right? So 3 copies of data, 2 different types of media, 1 offsite, and of course Veeam VBR integration. And then for our platform ops engineers, obviously, as mentioned before, native Kubernetes applications, really easy Helm deployment, CI/CD pipeline with things like Argo CD, and multi-cluster, multi-cloud support. So one thing that often comes up, so just addressing this is, look, there's plenty of open source or free tools out there, or I can just script it myself. And yeah, absolutely. There are some great free open source. I love open source. I'm a big fan. But note that remember that lack of in-house skills as a Kubernetes challenge. And push comes to shove, if you're facing a ransomware attack and need to recover those workloads, it's business critical when you are facing the pressure of the business. Will you have time to make sure those scripts work? Obviously, whomever wrote those scripts have to maintain it as you're deploying new workloads or deploying new namespaces. So yes, that is an option, but that's something that differentiates Cast and K10 from those scriptable or open source solutions. Is we're just out of the box, easy to use. And then diving into our ecosystem here, we have support, as I mentioned before, across data services, Kubernetes distribution, storage infrastructure, and security services. And there's many logos missing from this, but just be aware that we are an open vendor. We are software only, platform independent, and we support the ability to move workloads. Right, that's really important across these Kubernetes distributions. So if you're going on-prem to the cloud or vice versa, we fully support that and can enable that through our transform capability and using our object storage or NFS for our what we call exports. Let's see. So just making sure, keeping an eye on the clock there. So almost to our demo here. But so expanding data protection, really important thing to note here is that we are able to automate policies, right? So this is really important, again, in our very fast-paced CI/CD pipelines. We're seeing developers, make daily releases, right? Or nightlies, I guess, as you say. So we're able to take an approach where we can actually automatically deploy policies. We can make sure also that we are applying those backup policies as these workloads are being deployed. So we're all about automation, saving you time, effort, those day 2 ops, making sure that we are automatically protected out of the box. Application fingerprinting, another really important thing. This is how we provide our support for more complex apps with persistent data, again, like the MongoDBs, the MySQLs, the MariaDBs. We're able to use dynamic blueprint binding, so we can actually fingerprint our applications. So let's say you have multiple instances of MySQL or Mongo deployed. We can actually leverage the same blueprint across those. And again, things like quiescing and making sure that we can actually snap and back up and provide those application or crash consistent snapshots. So looking at transform sets, this is the key to allow us to move across different clouds, public, private, on-prem, or in the public cloud. We're able to, again, to enable your organization to move workloads across these Kubernetes distributions, right? So, and across underlying storage. So the nice thing about transforms is, if we're moving, let's say, from one cloud provider to another, obviously the storage class is going to be different among them. We're going to have different underlying storage. Also, maybe your ingress or network is different. So actually, during that migration, we can apply what's called transforms and automatically, essentially, think of it as like a really advanced find and replace, or SED for my Linux buddies out there, where we can actually change those in flight, and that way your applications come up in that destination Kubernetes landing place, right? So we can make sure it's seamless. You don't have to go tinker once your application's over there. Again, really important to minimize that mean time to recovery when you're facing any sort of issue, whether disaster or ransomware or what have you. So to put a feather in the cap there, before we jump into the demo, so obviously innovation at the speed of DevOps, making sure that we support advanced workloads, support the ability to transform workloads as we move amidst clouds, and then obviously policy as code and GitOps integration, making sure that we provide SOC-friendly auditing and things like AWS Guard Duty, Red Hat OpenShift Advanced Cluster Security, and then end-to-end encryption with secrets, secret manager, customer managed keys, and an ecosystem expansion, right? So important note there about casting K10 is we actually do releases every 2 weeks. We are constantly qualifying new Kubernetes versions, Red Hat OpenShift versions. We have a Cisco Hybrid Clouds validated design. We're working on a number of other validated designs. So just the important thing is that we're constantly innovating, making sure that we are keeping up with the pace of the industry. So with that, I'm going to jump into a quick demo. So let me share my screen. Let me switch over here, entire screen. So we're going to show a quick.
Yeah, we got you, Matt. Look at you, nailed it on the first try.
Look at that. All right. So hopefully we're looking at socks, Jess.
We're looking at socks. They're great socks.
Awesome. Cool. All right. So I'm going to run with this, guys. So I did speed this up just again, interest of time, but I'm going to talk through this as we go through. So we have our Sock Shop app here. It is deployed to Kubernetes. You can see I've got a few things in my shopping cart. I'm a huge fan of socks. Look at all my orders here. I've been spending quite a bit of money with our weave socks here. But, it's shopping season, right? So we need to make sure that we have the infrastructure to support our web app here. So here you see we have OpenShift clusters deployed via the OpenShift console. What I'm going to do is actually deploy a ROSA ROSA OpenShift instance, which is Red Hat in AWS. Super simple. You can see I can do this from the OpenShift console. I'm going to go ahead and deploy a new cluster there that can automatically scale from 2 to 5. I'm going to quickly move through here and just deploy my cluster. Important thing to note here is it is all clickable, all easy from Red Hat's console here. So we're going to deploy our cluster. While that's deploying, I'm going to head back to the casting K10 interface. You'll see I've got my Sock Shop policy. And what I'm going to do is actually set this up as a migration policy. So I'm going to set this as on demand. I'm going to export this to an S3 location that's immutable as well. And what I'll do then is you can see I've got it scoped to all resources and the namespace of Sock Shop. I'll say run once and continue. And what this is going to do is it's going to back up my cluster resources, my persistent data, all of my application and deployment configuration, and then essentially send that up to S3. So we can actually monitor our actions here. Look at all that green. That looks great, right? So it looks like we've completed successfully. Now we have a full recent backup of our Sock Shop app. So we're now almost ready to deploy it to our ROSA cluster, right? So that's our Red Hat OpenShift cluster in AWS. So I'm going to go ahead and log in here with my HT password, super secure, just kidding. But for demo purposes, it's fine. So I'm going to go ahead and deploy a new instance of K10. So super easy from Red Hat OpenShift's Operator Hub. Go ahead and click install here. Really quick to deploy. It'll deploy to my ROSA cluster. And then once that's deployed, again, all via the UI, I can actually go and view the operator and deploy an instance here. And this is the same way we do DR, right? So if in the case of a disaster, if you lose your data center where Kasten's deployed, we support DR where we can essentially, what we recommend is you deploy a whole new instance of K10 in your destination, and you can essentially rehydrate Kasten as well as your workloads via an offsite S3 bucket. You can see here we are fully deployed. If I go to routes, I should see a nice friendly URL thanks to OpenShift. I can just log in with token authentication. Obviously, you support multiple authentication methods, but that's an easy one with OpenShift. And then I'm going to set up a location profile to look at that S3 bucket I set up here. This is going to point to the same bucket that I sent my migration data to. I'm going to grab my AWS access key and secret there to punch that in. Obviously, I have to choose my region and then give it my bucket name there. And obviously, want to enable immutable backups there again for that ransomware protection. So I'll save that profile. We're nearly there, guys. So what we're going to do then is essentially set up a new policy to import from that S3 bucket. So I've got my Sock Shop import. You can see there I'm going to do it on demand. And then I have the ability to, what I'm going to do is go grab the secret there from my export. So if I show the import information, I'm going to copy that key and just punch it here in my destination here. Again, this is at K10 deployed to that ROSA cluster I just deployed. And I'm going to go ahead and say run once. And again, it's a nice green there. We can monitor our status here. You can see that it is currently, say, rehydrating our Sock Shop app. to our ROSA cluster. Look at that, super quick. May have sped up for production here, but yes, we have rehydrated. We have to search for that namespace because it did not exist in our new ROSA cluster. So I can go ahead and just restore the application again in this new cluster, and I can go ahead and grab my latest snapshot. I can create the new namespace called sock shop, which matches my source one, and then apply my transforms, right? So again, we're nearly there. This is really important though, is I have to make sure I change my storage, right? Because my source cluster, which was vSphere, had different underlying storage. So I'm gonna go ahead and change it to OpenShift, or in this case, sorry, AWS's, I think we use GP2 here, yep. And so I can actually do that in flight when I perform my restore operation. And then one more thing to do after I see this, you can see there that we've changed our storage class. Now I just have to address the networking. So again, really simple here. I have to remove the route host on my source and let OpenShift go ahead and define my route for this new cluster. Again, one of the beauties of OpenShift is it does it for you. And then you'll see here, I can test this. You can see there, that's what I want to replace. That gets removed. And then now I'm ready to go. So I'll go ahead and create the transform. You can see all of the resources that are going to be, we'll say restored, but migrated to my new cluster. I'm going to remove the storage class because we don't have the vSphere storage class in our new cluster here. And then we are good to go. So this is our last activity here. We should see a route populate here. If I change my project, there's my sock shop. You can see there are pods being spun up. Super exciting here, guys. Again, really important. You think about a disaster scenario or just a simple migration scenario is I'm not having to tinker, right? Because my transforms did this for me. And then it looks like our pods are coming online. And then we'll just go ahead and take a look. There's our nice sock shop URL. So we're going to click on that. Look at that. There's our sock shop. I'm going to log in. Let's see if all my orders are still there, right? That's my persistent data. I want to go reference. Have I ordered these pink, black, and gray socks? There they all are, right? So super simple. We migrated that over to our destination. And yeah, that is it. So with that, let me open it up to Q&A. I moved really quickly. So Jess, want to make sure I have time for questions.
I can't believe how quickly you moved that. I also can't believe how few tabs you have open. I feel like I have, like a friend of mine calls me emotional support tabs. I think I have about like 50 emotional support tabs. You have 5. I'm feeling attacked by that. But
well, I did reboot right before, just in case. So
there you go. I'm going to remind you to stop your screen share just so we don't inadvertently come along with the rest of your day. There we go. And I'm going to move on over to the poll for us here because we do have some questions for you. What additional information you would like to get about the Kasten by Veeam solution? So there's some great options for you up on the screen. Obviously, Matt had to move very quickly and we're just kind of brushing the surface there. So there's lots more to cover. Please do take a second and click on that poll. Let him know what additional information you guys would like to get. Matt, we are right up on time. I'm going to be I'm going to be a little reckless and ask you one question, and we'll just keep it a little short. Why would I need Kubernetes backup if all my workloads are stateless?
Great idea, and this is something. Or sorry, great question, not great idea. This is a question we get a lot, right? So again, things that back in 2016, absolutely, right? So the whole idea behind it was, oh, it's ephemeral. I don't need to worry about my data there. It's not deployed to Kubernetes. But in 2023, we're seeing that's very much not the case, right? We're seeing more and more stateful data, persistent data being deployed to Kubernetes for performance reasons, for ease of use for our developers. So yeah, we can't just back up etcd. We can't just snap VMs. We need to make sure that we have a Kubernetes architecture support within our backup and mobility solution. So yeah, that's a common one we get for sure.
Perfect. Well, we're keeping it short and sweet. I wish we could keep going. We are going to have to leave it there. But before you run away from us, Matt, if somebody wants to jump in, get started, start learning more about Kasten by Veeam, what do you recommend is that first step?
Awesome. Cool. So I'm going to jump back one slide just to show everybody. So yes, great question. Thank you, Jess, for teeing me up. So we offer free, fully featured Kasten. We've fully featured Kasten up to 5 worker nodes, right? So if you have 5 worker nodes or fewer, you can deploy K10 super easily via Helm. Visit that, just kasten.io/free-Kubernetes to get started.
Fantastic. Nice and easy. Well, Matt, as always, it is such a pleasure to hang out with you and your crew. I really appreciate you being here with us today. And I hope we'll see you again soon.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Jess. Always a pleasure. And yeah, have a great rest of your day.
All right. Well, I am going to move back on over to that poll because I want to make sure you have all had the time that you need to get some answers back to Caston, what additional follow-up you would like to get. So make sure you take some time now to answer that poll question. If you answered before, don't worry, your answer is still logged in that poll. I also want to remind you to head on over to the handouts tab. If you haven't visited that recently, make sure you've got the Caston handout, 5 Kubernetes backup best practices addressing data management needs for a container native world. This is such a cool read and an absolutely great follow-up on the conversation we just had with Matt. So make sure you've got that downloaded, put that aside, save that for later. Don't read it now because we've got one more awesome session in the wings. So just hang on to that for later. While you're clicking on the poll, downloading that handout, I've got another prize giveaway for you. So we're going to do a $300 Amazon gift card as well as a Microsoft Surface Pro 9. So our $300 Amazon gift card is going to Charles Park of Nebraska, and our Microsoft Surface Pro 9 is going to Joe Murkowski of Wisconsin. Congratulations to you both. As always, we will be in touch about claiming your prize after we wrap. Now, stay tuned. We've got another chance to win. Plus, we have that best question gift card coming at you from each session. So even if we don't get to your question, and I know there was a lot of questions that we didn't just get to with Caston by Veeam, but don't worry because the questions all get sent on to the teams. You'll get answers back, and you're still entered to win that best question gift card. So stay tuned for that. But last chance to click on the poll if you haven't already done it. Click, 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 and gone. All right, folks, we are going to move things along because we are getting towards the end of our MegaCast today. But don't worry, we are not winding down or wrapping things up. We are ramping them up because here with us today, we have not one, but 2 awesome speakers from the Cohesity crew. And that's Teresa Miller, MBA Director, Technical Advisory Group, and Shelley Calhoun-Jones, Principal Technologist, Technology Advocacy Group, here with us from Cohesity. This is going to be an awesome way to wrap up our MegaCast. Teresa and Shelley, I want to thank both of you for being here with us today as our grand finale. I am so excited to hear what you have in store for us, and I know we want to save some time for questions at the end. So, Teresa, I'm going to hand things right on over to you. Take it away.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Cohesity session, choosing a next-generation data protection and disaster recovery solution. So, data protection and disaster recovery solutions are undergoing a revolution. The emergence of cloud makes these solutions more capable, faster, and more resilient than ever. But keep in mind, ransomware is making disaster recovery planning as well as data protection more important than ever. And we even have the C-suite and the boardroom involved and invested in the right decisions. So today we are going to take you on a journey that is a little bit more cyber resiliency focused, in the sense that we're going to show you how when you put data protection together with a cyber resiliency strategy, allowing for disaster recovery, you get an even more powerful impact and benefit. My name is Teresa Miller. I am the Director of Technical Advocacy here at Cohesity. I'm here to intro the topic today, as well as handle the Q&A at the end. I am also joined today by Shelley Calhoun-Jones, who is a principal technologist at Cohesity, and she is going to go ahead and talk to you about our topic today.
Hello and welcome, everyone. My name is Shelley Calhoun-Jones, and I'm delighted to be here today, and I want to thank everyone for joining us. But before we get started, what is cyber resilience? Cyber resilience measures how well an organization can manage an attack while continuing to operate its business effectively. It's made up of 2 concepts: cybersecurity, which in most organizations means the ability to withstand an attack, and data resilience, which means the ability to recover quickly. Let's take a look at how this works within Cohesity Data Hawk. Cohesity takes a comprehensive approach when it comes to data security, utilizing multiple layers of cybersecurity and data-centric security measures to protect data from all angles. And our approach is divided into 3 different stages: protect, detect, and recover, which can really be thought of as the before, during, and after. When we say protect, what this means is to ensure that we are taking advantage of our full data protection, we're going to utilize data resiliency and access controls to secure the backup and recovery process. We also maintain an immutable copy of your data to prevent ransomware attacks, which will often target backup environments. In addition, we also use a concept which is called RBAC, or role-based access controls, with the principle of least privilege. We'll also notice that we use MFA, which means that we have the ability to leverage multi-factor authentication and features like quorum, which require approval from multiple individuals for critical changes to help ensure that you maintain your data security. From a detect standpoint, we use various methods for threat detection, such as anomaly detection, monitoring for malware and user activity, and performing data classification scans. From a recover standpoint, if we do need to perform a data recovery, we use a multi-pronged approach. And so features like our global search allows us to search for specific data, while we also have the ability to perform mass recovery at scale. So if you need to recover a large workload, let's say you have a couple hundred servers that you need to recover, we have the ability to recover using mass recovery by using what's called a known good data point. Now we're going to dive a little bit deeper on this concept later in this session, but let's dive deeper on how DataHawk extends data protection, taking a look at the following features. During the protect phase, Cohesity offers 3 ways that you can set up protection, including data isolation. This feature allows you to keep an immutable copy of your data until needed, which is also known as cyber vaulting. Cyber vaulting is essential because what it does is it allows organizations to retain, recover, and be resilient against ransomware. In particular, ransomware that could target your backup environment. Attackers rely on their victims not having a valid and complete backup to force them to pay the ransom. In the detection phase, 2 critical features are highlighted: threat protection and data classification. Data classification allows you to quantify the type of data that you're backing up. It allows you to classify large sets of data, and in turn, it gives you the ability to help go in and reduce risk and strengthen your security posture. An example would be if you have a mission-critical workload that you're backing up and you want to understand the type of data that's being hosted on that mission-critical workload, you can learn about the data that it's using and in turn deploy more robust security policies. So that's the benefit of using features like data classification. But for a lot of organizations, you could be managing both your backup operations and your security operations in different parts of the company. And so in turn, you may have different tools that you use. And so to address this issue, Cohesity integrates with many popular security solutions like Splunk, Microsoft Sentinel, Palo Alto, and Tenable for vulnerability management. And so by extending your data protection, you're able to build out a more solid security foundation, which is really critical for any type of security event, making sure that you have the ability not only to recover, but also have the ability to respond quickly. Those are the 2 key areas I wanted to call out. So to quickly summarize, with Cohesity DataHawk, you can use features like the Security Center, which is going to give you a single view into all security functions and a snapshot of your environment. You can use Cohesity Fort Knox for cyber vaulting and improve your ability to detect ransomware and other threats in your backup data using Cohesity Threat Protection. Cohesity also offers data classification and SOC integrations to help automate threat response in your environment. Before we jump over to a demo, I want to emphasize that for threat protection and data classification, these are delivered as a fully managed service. Only the metadata is going to get sent to the cloud for monitoring, which means that you can meet your data residency goals and your data never leaves the Cohesity cluster. Data classification and threat intelligence workloads run on-prem using a Cohesity Marketplace app, and data sources can be either VM backups or unstructured data. So we're going to go ahead and jump into Cohesity Datahawk. I'm going to show you a server with an anomalous snapshot. We'll also take a look at some files with sensitive data, so we can take a look at that data classification feature. We'll go through the process of performing a threat detection scan, and I'll walk you through some scan results. Let's get started. Okay, so right now we are in the Security Center dashboard. This gives us the ability to get a quick pulse check on our security posture, threat protection, data sensitivity, and also cyber vaulting. But for right now, let's go ahead and click on anti-ransomware, and we're going to identify a server that we'll research. Okay, so in this example, we have two different servers that are showing with anomalous snapshots. I'm going to go ahead and click on the second entry here so we can take a look. And in this example, we can see that all backup activity was normal until June 21st. And at that point, Cohesity detected anomalous activity and blocked the snapshot. Let's go ahead and take a look at the trends, which shows us all trends of anomalous and clean snapshots, as well as our expired snapshots. And so in this example, we can see that more data was written on our anomalous snapshot versus our clean snapshot. So that's something that we're going to want to document, because with ransomware, it not only blocks access to files, but the infection can also download files and other malware from a command and control server. But also keep in mind that we're seeing all activity for this server snapshot. So at this point, we're just doing initial data gathering about the event. Now, to learn more, what I can do is I can click on the Affected Files tab and drill down to the files that were added or modified. If there's a particular point of interest, for example, if I want to download this file into a forensic environment, I can do that. I can just click on the ellipsis and select Download File. And then from that environment, the security operations team can do further investigation of the issue. You also see up at the top here, we have the ability to filter. So if I only wanted to see files that were deleted, for example, maybe I want to do a quick recovery, which I can do up here, I can drill down and look specifically at the files that were deleted. You'll also notice that we have a file sensitivity tab, and the reason for this is that a lot of times we want to understand the data that was impacted. And so that's one of the cool things, is that with Datahawk, it gives us the ability to perform data classification scans to quantify the type of data that resides in our backup. And so in this example, we can see that we had several files with credit card information. We can also see some files with medium sensitivity patterns. And if I wanted to, I can click on this entry here to view all files with sensitive information. In this example, we're looking at files with credit card information. So we have a server with anomalous activity, and although, granted, we can gather some insights here, we can also gain more visibility within Cohesity Datahawk. So I'm going to go ahead and close out of this, and we're going to browse down to the threat protection section. And you'll see here that we have a section called Threat Detection, which allows us to perform threat intelligence scans on our servers. Okay, so first what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how you can run a threat detection scan. And then we're actually going to go in and take a look at some scan results. But to show you the interface, let me go ahead and click on Start Detection. We'll select Threat Intelligence. And I'm going to go ahead and search for my DH server. And so in this example, you can see that we have DH134 I can click next. I can either choose to scan the most recent snapshot, or I can actually scan within a custom date range. I also have the ability to skip larger files. So if I wanted to skip files larger than 200 megabytes, I could do that as well. That would be the process for setting up a new threat intelligence scan. Let me actually go in and show you the scan results for one of these recent scans that we performed. And so I'm going to click on TM Server 08, and we can see that for TM Server 08, we did receive some anomalous files from that scan. And what I can do is I can actually highlight the file hash here. I can copy, and then I can go out to VirusTotal and copy in that file hash. And you can see it's going to come back with hits showing that this file has been seen out in the wild and has been flagged as malicious by various security vendors. So this is a wonderful tool that you can use for learning more about the files that are not only residing in your environment, but you can also use it for identifying indicators of compromise. Just one last piece before we wrap up is I just want to show you that you do also have the ability to perform data classification scans. We took a brief look at that within the anti-ransomware section, but you'll also see that we have a lot of predefined patterns that have already been defined within DataHawk, and you have the ability to create more. And when I say a data pattern, this is any type of information that you may use within your organization, maybe like a particular format that you use for entering in things like invoice information, credit card numbers, medical information, any other type of proprietary information. And you'll see that we have a lot of predefined patterns which come included with the DataHawk solution, but you also have the ability to create your own. And if there are any files that you need to exclude, you can also exclude that within the data sensitivity section. So just to recap, we took a look at a server with an anomalous snapshot. We also took a look at how you can use DataHawk's threat protection feature for identifying indicators of compromise. And we just took a bonus look at some of the features that you get with our data classification scans.
Shelley, thank you so much for that outstanding presentation and demo. What we're going to do next is head over to some live Q&A to wrap up our session today.
Okay, and we've got a poll question up before we get into our Q&A, which I know we're all very excited to do. And what we're wondering is what additional information you would like to get about the Cohesity solution, because we just got so much great information from Shelley, and thank you so much for that, Shelley. And I am really excited to get into it even further, but there's lots more to explore, right? And there's been a lot of information today. You're just not going to remember all of it. So do yourself a favor, hit the easy button, click on that poll right now, and then Cohesity can follow up and send you exactly what you need after we wrap up. Speaking of getting into a little bit more information, Teresa, I really appreciate you sticking around to answer some audience questions. You ready to dive in?
Yeah, let's take some.
Let's do it. Okay. I want to start with this one because I think it's a great sort of intro question here. We did get a question from the audience about whether or not DataHawk would work as a standalone solution.
Yeah, that's a really great question. So in terms of DataHawk, it does require our foundational data protect or even Smart Files, which is our NAS offering, to be in place. And then DataHawk can run against those workloads. So
awesome.
It's really that simple. Yeah.
I was going to say quick and easy answer on that one.
Yeah, short and sweet.
Perfect. Yes, love when that happens. Okay, so follow-up question: how would a SOC integration work, and for which SOC capabilities would we be looking at?
Yeah, so we have we have a whole security alliance where we work with many different security vendors, because at the end of the day, security is a team sport. There's not going to be one solution that's going to be able to do everything. In addition to that, a lot of companies have preferred solutions. So when it comes to SOC integrations, we have adapters that push DataHawk alerts into Palo Alto, for example, in the Cortex XSOAR solution. Cisco SecureX and Microsoft Sentinel are just a few. We have more coming. And then these work with regular data protect as well. So you don't necessarily have to have DataHawk. We can leverage these adapters to push into those tool sets. And then your security teams can do whatever analysis they want to do. And then we can also engage in remediation in those tools. So for example, if your SOC determines that something's a false positive, they can ignore it. And if, and only if you allow it, you also have the ability to allow them to enable a restore of a machine if that's the right next step. But again, you have choice. You don't have to do those things, but nonetheless, those adapters have some great integrations with those partners.
I love that customization and that choice there. And I do want to mention, Teresa, that you and Shelley are both getting quite a few high fives from the audience out here. I think the information is really resonating with folks. A few more questions that I want to get into. This is an interesting one. So we have data in AWS, S3, Azure. I almost said Azure. I know everyone gets so fancy about how you pronounce that. Google Drive, as well as local internet file servers. So just everything. Are there integrations that can find and classify all of my data? How would you address that varied of an infrastructure there?
Yeah, and it's almost the typical environment these days. It's, you're multi-cloud, you have data on-prem in your data center. So data is all over the place. And so basically from a Cohesity perspective, DataHawk works on data protected through our backups. So if your data has been protected, whether it's in AWS, AWS S3, Azure, Google, etc., as long as it's being protected, then we can classify it. If Cohesity doesn't know about it, then we wouldn't be able to.
Awesome. Okay. Well, as you were just saying, this type of really varied environment is pretty common. So are there restrictions on cloud? And a follow-up question from our audience here. Can we use DataHawk in conjunction with AWS Shield?
Yeah, great question. All right. So in terms of DataHawk, it works side by side with other protection mechanisms that you might be deploying in your environment. But let's talk a little bit about AWS Shield, because that is actually used more for like a DDoS in terms of mitigating those denial of service type attacks. So that solution in particular doesn't have a lot of bearing on DataHawk. But, if you're employing other solutions, for example, like DLP, policy enforcement, etc., DataHawk can give you more awareness around what's within those objects, again, that have been previously protected by Cohesity or backed up, and within those objects that have been impacted by an anomaly. So less on the AWS Shield side, but you're definitely going to get a nice heightened awareness of what's going on by leveraging DataHawk.
And this came in during the demo here, wondering about scanning the files in real time to see if they're being changed.
Yeah. So with the threat, go ahead.
No, that was it. I think there was a glitch. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I thought maybe you had something to add to the question. Okay. So in terms of scanning real time, we're scanning the snapshots or the backups. Mm-hmm. So it's not going to have any kind of tax or imposition on your production data. And so in this case, that's why data protect or smart files is required. It all starts with the underlying backup. We scan against that. And then the other nice thing is no matter what's going on in your environment, because it's done at the protection level, you can kick off multiple scans at any time as well. I know in my experiences in the enterprise, the more you could do against like that backup data or a tertiary copy of data, the better, because you certainly don't want to have any negative impact on the production workloads happening during the day.
Yeah, absolutely right. Okay, well, Teresa, I really wish we could keep going with this because there's a lot of great questions coming in and clearly some things that we're just not going to have time to dig into. But we are going to make sure that your team gets all of the questions so that we can do some follow-up and you'll be able to email them back. And before you take off, I do want to ask you, for someone out there that is really excited about Cohesity, and I think there's quite a few raving fans out there now, what do they do? What's their first step to learning more or getting started?
Yeah, so in terms of Cohesity in general, you could go out to the cohesity.com website. If you're interested in DataHawk, you go to cohesity.com / I think it's DataHawk, or just do a DataHawk search when you get to the page. And then we have other solutions too. For example, we have our backup as a service offering. There is a free trial available of that that you could check out as well. So all at cohesity.com.
Perfect. I love it. A one-stop shop for all the info that you need. Teresa, I really do want to thank you and Shelly again for being here with us today. That was a great demo. It's been really fun kind of digging into some of these audience questions with you. So thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
All right, and to everyone out there that is clicking on the poll and submitting questions, thank you so much for that participation. Again, that just brings up all the energy in our MegaCast, and especially as we're getting to the end of what has been a long and awesome day. I appreciate seeing how engaged you all are, so thank you for that. I also want to remind you to make sure that you visited the Handouts tab. Make sure that you get that Cohesity handout on Cohesity DataHawk, threat protection and data intelligence for cyber recovery. It's quite a short read. It's 2 pages. But it's just jam-packed with information. So it is a really wonderful way to follow up on the conversation that we just had with Shelly and with Teresa. So be sure that you've got that downloaded, put that aside, save that on your desktop, because I promise you're going to want to come back and review that information once we've wrapped up here. And we are very close to the end of our session. So make sure you get in there. Norman, I agree. Norman says he really appreciated the demos. It makes for better and more convincing presentation. I would have to echo that, Norman. I think, being able to see some of these solutions in real time is a pretty cool opportunity. So I appreciate that. We've gotten to do quite a bit of that today. And thank you for that feedback, Norman. All right. Well, as I said, I'm seeing the high fives rolling in, and I love that. That really puts a smile on all of our faces here. We love knowing that these are resonating with you and getting you the information that you need as you're looking for it. Okay, well, we are going to keep things rolling, which means we have one more prize giveaway for all of you, and then I will read the entire list of prize winners. So we have a $300 Amazon gift card and a Microsoft Surface Pro 9. Our Amazon gift card is going to Rick Lupton of North Carolina, and our Surface Pro 9 is going to Rob Hanma of California, All right, well, congratulations to Rick Lupton of North Carolina and Rob Hanma of California. Rob, that's a familiar name. I'm glad to see you walking away with a Microsoft Surface Pro 9. Now I'm going to read the entire list for all of you folks here. So remember, whatever word you want, that you do need to be here live and present with us at the MegaCast in order to win. Here's our full list. A gift card going to Alfonso Wynn of California, a gift card going to Marco Mambelli of Illinois, a Surface going to Brian Fodry of Pennsylvania, a gift card going to Ciro Azule of Arizona, a gift card going to Fred Russo of New Hampshire, a Surface going to Larch McWaters of Idaho, a gift card going to Richard Martin of New Jersey, and a Surface going to Chris Lay of Vermont, a gift card going to Charles Park of Nebraska, and a Surface going to Joe Murkowski of Wisconsin, a gift card going to Rick Lupton of North Carolina, and a Surface going to Rob Hanma of California. There you are. And congratulations to all of our winners. I did see a question just coming in about not seeing their questions coming in. We are seeing your questions coming in. How many times can I say the word question in 10 seconds? We do see all of your questions coming in. If you are wondering about that, we absolutely are receiving those, and we are making sure that those get onto the right teams in order to respond to you. So please don't worry if you're not seeing your questions kind of scrolling past on the screen. There's a different feed for questions and highs and hellos. So that's why those are a little bit separate. But no worries. And speaking of which, if you were asking some questions today, you are entered to win that $50 Amazon gift card. So we will be reviewing all the questions asked after we wrap, and we will make sure that we follow up with you. All right, well, folks, it has been quite a day. What a fun conversation this has been. I want to really extend a big thank you to all of you for taking the time to come and join us. And if you've been sitting there thinking, hey, I might have something to say on a topic like this as well, we would absolutely love to invite you to come participate in a MegaCast, an EcoCast, a summit, a webinar, whatever you have in mind. If you would like to present on an Actual Tech Media event, please do email us at connect@actualtechmedia.com. Send us a message. Keith, David, Scott, myself, the whole crew is here with you today. We would all love to have a conversation. Shoot us an email and we will get that rolling. Okay, team. Well, with that, on behalf of the Actual Tech Media team, I want to thank all of our speakers we had here with us today. What a powerhouse crew. Rubrik, Haiku, Vast Data, Commvault, Hewlett Packard Enterprise, Kasten by Veeam, and Cohesity. Thank you to all of you for making this MegaCast possible. As always, a very special thank you to all of you for attending, for asking some great questions. I really had a lot of fun with you coming in right at the end here today. I'm glad that I got to join in the good times. Scott and Keith got to have a lot of fun with you all through the day. And it was great to come in and join the conversation. You know, we talk about this a lot, but as threats are evolving constantly, so do the solutions. And so it's conversations like the one that we got to have here today that allow us to stay up to date and on top of these things, and really help us get out in front of, or at least keep a pace with, some of these fast changes. So today was a lot of fun for all of us here and our entire Actual Tech Media moderator team that was all here with you. And I hope you enjoyed it as well. I also really hope that you've gotten some interesting ideas, maybe some tips, and are feeling a little more informed and better equipped to tackle some of these security solutions, enhancements, and strategies at your organization. Most of all, I hope you had a good time. Most of all, I hope you had fun and you will come and join us again. So please do mark your calendar. We have an EcoCast coming up, Wrangling Passwords, Authentication and Identity Keys to Success. That's going to be tomorrow. That's Thursday, July 27th already. Oh my goodness, that's tomorrow, 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Again, an EcoCast on Wrangling Passwords, Authentication and Identity Keys to Success. Scott and Keith and I have been planning a password game that we're going to do for the keynote. I'm very excited to play this game. Come and join us. It'll be a blast. That is tomorrow at 12 noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. All right, my friends. Well, it's been fun hanging with all of you. I hope I will see you tomorrow or at an event again soon. And until then, I hope you have an absolutely beautiful end to your day.